the schedule show and then move it around a bunch. Like, it's better for our views to be on the same link.
Are we on? Hello, friends.
People won't mind. I'm just talking view counts. Hey, everybody, you got 5 minutes till the show. But hey, this is me, Kayla Knierim. Just talking to you guys. They don't know. They can't see us. Hey, it's me, Eric Lindquist. I'm also doing the show today.
I swear to God. I will fucking end you. Oh, God.
There's like gonna be one person watching this just baffled.
I see 42 people in the chat, is what I see.
Yeah. They're waiting patiently.
Dink, bitch, be da dink, be da dink.
I'm excited to talk some golf today on the show.
I know it comes from a loving place, but there's a line. There's a line.
I got a segment on the run sheet just for you, so I feel like that's...
Oh, that's true.
Team Birch.
Kim Birch.
Kim.
I don't think there are too many bad names today. I think these are mostly ones that you either said before or should know deeply within your heart and soul.
Fantastic. There were some humdingers yesterday.
Humdingers.
Was that your run sheet yesterday, Eric?
I hate you.
No, was it? I didn't know.
Yes, it was my run sheet.
It had nothing to do with Eric. It was just the names.
Well, I know Eric likes to put in little jokes and such for, like, when he does the run sheet.
I like alliteration is what I like.
You like humdingers.
Bazinga.
Humdingers is one of those things that, like, that was, I'm sure, like, a really cool thing to say in, like, the 30s, and now it's just, like, that sounds like an Urban Dictionary thing that would be very...
Or in 2021 in Missouri.
That's true. Lots of humdingers there.
True.
Has Josh recovered from Ben Simmons last night? I hope not. I hope he's suffering. No.
Jeez. You're really aggressive. I thought I was aggressive. And
we gotta fill this airtime, I feel like. If the mics are gonna be hot, I'm not gonna waste a hot mic.
Oh, mics are so hot.
I'm more of an Ike guy. I think Ike's more. Yep.
Yes.
Sweet spot.
And everybody loves the hot mics too. They feel like they're getting bonus content. Like I'm just riffing here. I'm doing my full Bill O'Reilly. I'm gonna start going off.
It's like outtakes, but the inverse. It's like
intakes. That's what happens when I wake up and do a show.
We just giggle an entire show. Like for 90 minutes yesterday, we just giggled. It was like
On what show?
On Live Before Lock. We're just laughing. I like Spags.
And we have fun shows. I also woke up at 6:30 this morning to do the strategy show, and I am like, my girlfriend like flipped the dog around, so she gets night terrors and kicks in her sleep. The dog, not the girlfriend.
Oh my gosh, I was like...
No, but it's adorable. But yeah, the dog like woke me up at 4 a.m. and then just would intermittently just kick, and I was like, well, cool. Guess we're just rolling with 5 hours today.
This is why I don't have a pet.
I love them to death, but yeah, when they wake you up, like we're not gonna have the next generation of dogs. My girlfriend says will not be allowed in the bed, which I get until I break it the first day. And that's the real humdinger.
Yeah.
Honestly, we have 17 likes already. I feel like people must love. They probably love my Eric impression.
Like and subscribe.
My Eric impression.
Hey, it's me, Eric Lindquist. Like and subscribe, please. Before the video starts. Thank you.
Should I just leave then? Just leave.
Cool.
No, night terrors are not adorable, DJ.
Does anyone here have sleep paralysis? Are we live? All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this Wednesday edition of the Tip Off. Sorry, I was not looking at our producer and we didn't have intro music. That was confusing. All right. The show that sets the stage for all the most important news, daily fantasy plays, and bets on tonight's 9-game NBA slate. I am your host, Kayla Knierim. Joining me today, we've got Eric Lindquist, Chris Spags, Guys, how we doing?
I'm feeling
So
good.
good.
Had some fun before the show. I enjoyed Eric's promoting for likes and subscribes before the show. I thought it was nice of him to take some initiative on the hot mic, but we're having a good time here on the tip off. It's fun being back in the same stream as Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock coming up after us here, but I'm looking forward to it. It's a good NBA slate, a lot of games, lots of key news.
Should I do my impression of you making an impression of me? Oh, guys, like and subscribe today. Oh, boy. Good God. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's great to be here. It's lovely. I feel loved and appreciated.
We're already off to a wild Wednesday. Like Eric said, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for countless hours of content on the NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, and every other sport that's in season. Did I miss something already? What's happening?
No, it's
just laughing at Eric.
Just laughing at Spags, laughing at me.
Glad we're having fun today. All right, let's talk about our sponsor, No House Advantage, who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL, and PGA for cash prizes. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform levels the playing field and makes it easier for you to win real cash compared with your traditional DFS sites. The best part is you can join for free today. Just download the No House Advantage app and use promo code Awesemo to receive a first match deposit bonus of up to $20. Be your friends, not the house. Win big with player props today. I feel like I'm yelling. Calm down, Kayla. All right, let's get to our bad beats. Yesterday's NBA slate had a lot of the expected value plays work out well, while some other core plays fell short. How did it go for you both, Spags? We're going to start with you.
Honestly, yeah, the value plays seemed fine. I feel like some of the pay up options didn't quite go my way. And one guy I mentioned that got 100% of yesterday was feeling great about. Started so hot. He's going to be another important player that we're going to be watching out for news about today. But Miles Turner hurt his ankle 1 minute into the second half, which was one of my 100% plays just because he looked fantastic to me. Finally paying off all the dividends of people who've hated Miles Turner, who've been mad at him for failing his chalk he was coming through. And then he hurts his ankle. And now we don't know who'll be playing for the Pacers tonight. So besides that, I didn't feel too bad, but the Miles Turner part, I think, ruined so many lineups, especially compared to Vooch having arguably the best game he's ever had, at least in a couple seasons.
Yeah, I had 30%, so that happened for me too. I'm pretty sure for the most part, like the Toronto Raptors, obviously both of those guys ended up working out fantastically well, being able to slot in a little bit of Lonzo Ball here and there. I'm really kind of disappointed though, because I was so front loaded on Aaron Gordon, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green. And I talked about on Live Before Lock with you, the swap ability that they gave you. You get Giannis ruled out unexpectedly. And I was able to pivot onto all of those Bucks, and none of them busted through a ceiling. So it ended up being a very average day for me. Pretty much probably the most break-even day that I've had all year, which is kind of disappointing because whenever you get something that skews that heavily towards having the swap ability, it generally is going to work out well for me, and it just didn't yesterday.
All right, like we said at the top of the show, we have a ton of key news to get to. We're with you 45 minutes today, so we're going to try to get through this all as quickly as possible. First up, we've got Kevin Durant returning to the Nets lineup tonight, while James Harden will be out at least 10 days with a hamstring issue. Eric, who's in play for tonight with lofty prices for both KD and Kyrie Irving versus New Orleans?
I mean, we got to just talk about KD, and it just comes down to what the minutes end up being. KD coming back. Oh, you're a big KD guy still with the OKC feelings, right?
I am not a big KD person whatsoever.
Oh, there we go. So the exact opposite. That's great. We have warm, fuzzy feelings around Kevin Durant. So yeah, Kevin Durant's back. It's basically a 1v1 swap. I think the minutes are very, very unpredictable to try to figure out what's going to go on until we hear like minutes limit. I've got him in for 30 right now. And I think at 9,200 on DraftKings, I'm not going to really get there. FanDuel is really kind of what you're looking at utilizing him on, just because he gives you the ability to have a pay up in that situation. From a raw projection standpoint, it's basically him and Jaylen Brown. So from a tournament perspective, I just like going to KD. I'm curious what his ownership's going to get to throughout the day. Kyrie Irving continues to just have massive rates, even with Kevin Durant back in the mix, actually a lot better than he has with James Harden. Rated about 1.33 on the entire year. It goes up to 1.46 with James Harden off the floor. Very excited to get to a lot of him today too.
I think these guys to me on DraftKings look a little bit overpriced in a way that I'm not sure how much I'm going to get, just because it's a big enough slate. There's a lot of other places to go, a lot of guys to pay up who could be in better spots. And I think Kyrie in this situation, at least to me, the price screams, and he's had upside recently with James Harden playing alongside him. But I think this price screams to me that they thought there wouldn't be Harden and there probably wouldn't be Durant, or at least be a limited Durant. But Durant's in for 31 minutes from Awesemo right now, and I think that gives me some concern. I think if we get where there's a minutes limit of Durant at 20, I think that makes Kyrie a little more tenable to play at above 10K. But I think you might be forcing it a little bit too much to try to get at least to a lot of Kyrie today. It is a decent spot against New Orleans. They are a defense that's fairly accommodating for guys who score and assist well. But I think for the most part, to me, these guys' prices a little bit tough to imagine getting a ton of them today. And if you do get them, it's fine, but I just wouldn't go crazy. And I think the Fields ownership, maximum of 14% for Kyrie on DraftKings, that feels about right to me.
Devin said it best in the chat. Thunder fans don't like KD. So that's where we're at.
You guys think he's
makes sense to me.
On the Pelicans side, Brandon Ingram is questionable again after he missed a game yesterday where Zion Williamson and Lonzo Ball soaked up all of the usage. Spags, what will you do with these guys tonight if Ingram is out again versus Brooklyn?
I think Zion is still going to be my favorite play here. And he was a guy that I mentioned on the Live Before Lock show yesterday with Eric. Eric and I getting to spend a lot of quality time together on camera, never in real life. Don't get confused.
You've been invited, by the way.
I have been at some point.
Fine.
I'll cave.
You're dead to me, but we're fine here. We're fine on this show.
But we talked about it yesterday on Live Before Lock, where Zion, to me, as a median projection guy, it's hard to get there a lot for me just because you have Ingram there with a 30% usage rate. You have, Bledsoe still carrying some degree of usage, not a lot. You have enough guys in the rotation with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, guys who get up shots. Now, if you don't have Ingram again, I think Zion becomes a much better play, a guy who you can see having that median projection while also knowing that he's got a ceiling of probably 60 fantasy points if Ingram is out. I think if Ingram is in, I don't know that I'd want to play a lot of Zion or Lonzo Ball or Ingram really with these guys' prices where they are. But if Ingram's out, I think Zion's a good play. And Ball I'm a little bit skeptical of, but he did just almost have a triple-double yesterday. The rates do back him out. Some high usage numbers for him that probably a little bit unsustainable and small sample size Ball, but no pun intended. But for the most part, still just pour 10 good things for Ball. So I think Zion's a priority play if Ingram's out, and Ball's a good flyer in a GPP, but that's probably about it for me, I think.
Yeah, so we got to also talk about the game environment. It's the only total we have over 230, and we're looking at studs at grouping them together. If you're going to get KD, and I saw in the chat, so let's just talk about this game in general. So Kenneth said that he's like, why push him against a 10-point dog? Well, KD's got to be healthy because they were never going to push him anyway. So my assumption is that he's pretty healthy. It's not like he's just showing up and they're going to play him 19, 20 minutes and let him like get adjusted to the game. Like if he's a go, he's a go. So I'm assuming around 30 minutes, that kind of feels like the right number. I think you're looking at maybe a little bit more than that. I would probably sign on that side of it rather than a little bit less. But just kind of like grouping these studs together in a game that has one of the only totals that we're really looking at exploiting. Nothing else really other than the Minnesota Pacers game is like remotely over 227 as I'm looking at the board right now. So, I mean, it's a great game environment. Grouping studs together. Rinpack talked a lot on the slate starter last night, how Zion just kind of eats up all the usage here. So if you get Ingram out again, especially, his tag on both sites just really kind of jumps out to me as maybe being a little undervalued for the situation. Yeah, Lonzo Ball's played great the last 2 times out, but we've seen time and time again the kind of adjustments that Zion's been making in his game. The assist rate's gone up. Rebound rate, I would like to still see get up a little bit further for a big guy. He's had a couple double-doubles here, 2 in the last, 9 outings for him. But I would like to see that number come up a little bit more. But there's a crazy amount of upside for him in a fast-paced matchup against a team that he's going to want to show out against. So I do like going to the Zion side of things here. Regardless, even if Ingram is in, I think I'm still going to have well over the field on Zion.
All right. Bradley Beal is questionable again after he missed last time out, resulting in another chalk Russell Westbrook day. Eric, does Beal miss again tonight versus Orlando? And how much would it look like if he does?
I mean, this is like Groundhog's Day. Like this entire week has just been like the same slate over and over with Toronto Raptors, with New Orleans Pelicans, and Bradley Beal questionable. It's just been like 1 week of the same crap, and I'm just kind of over it. But Russell Westbrook, fantastic play. There's really nothing you can poke in a hole. I will say, or poke a hole in, I don't know, whatever. We're going to move on. Russell Westbrook, big fan. I don't know how you wouldn't be. I know we have a ton of news to talk about otherwise, so I'll just kind of give you the other plays that I'm interested in. I think Davis Bertans stands out at 3,700. If Beal does go 8,300 on FanDuel, fantastic. Denny Avdia playing massive minutes. You're replacing 38 minutes at the small forward position / power forward position with Rui Hachimura out. So I really like getting to Denny Avdia, 4,300 specifically on FanDuel. A little less interesting to me at 5,100, which is just kind of a stupid number over on DraftKings that I don't really want to pay the freight for.
Yeah, I don't see getting anybody here if Beal is in. I think for the most part, to me, Westbrook looks a bit overpriced. You could still sort of force the narrative there. I think if you want that, him getting Beal back might unlock the ceiling that we saw in one start without Beal. But for the most part, Westbrook's been very good. Hasn't killed you by any stretch in any tournament. Has been in tournament winning lineups, but hasn't been the, again, triple double, putting up 20 assists kind of guy he was in that one start against Indiana that I think everybody keeps rostering him in the hopes of getting again. But I think, that to me is still a spot where if Beal is out, you have to play Westbrook again. I would agree. Avdia is still unplayable. Even if Beal is out, 5,100 is a crazy price. And I don't know how you even can justify going there really at all. Bertans, I think, is cheaper. As Eric was saying, a much better play. To me, a guy who's going to get some usage, actually can get hot, get some shots up against an Orlando team that defensively certainly no great shakes at this point. But I really think, you need Beal out again on DraftKings. On FanDuel, the price for Beal, I think, is fine if he is going to be playable, or if he's going to be in. But on DraftKings, I just don't see playing a single guy here if we get Beal in today.
Cole Anthony will be back for the Magic, who will also have Kim Birch and Michael Carter-Williams active. Spags, is Cole Anthony or really anyone else on the awful Magic in play versus Washington tonight?
And normally you do like targeting anybody going against Washington because it's such a bad defense. It's such a team that plays fast, like things that are normally good for DFS. But because of the way that Orlando looks and also the minutes for these guys, where if you have Kem Birch back in, I think there's some concern that Wendell Carter, he was in for 29 minutes from Awesemo earlier tonight. I'm wondering if that changed. I might need to just take a quick poll here between segments, but I think Wendell Carter, if he's in for 29 minutes, he looks fine. If he's going to get somewhere around 20 minutes, which is where that he was splitting time with Birch and with Mamba previously, that's something that is not great for Wendell Carter. So that is one thing that needed to keep a close eye on Awesemo's minutes projections to really see if Carter's playable or not. I guess the only one to me that could be on the cusp of playability is Michael Carter-Williams. But when you have Cole Anthony back, even if it's for a nominal amount of minutes, Cole Anthony himself probably won't be playable, but he takes away enough point guard opportunities for Carter-Williams, who's probably going to be more setting up Cole Anthony or handing him the ball rather than doing anything himself. So I think that there really isn't a lot to love for Orlando. I want to force something just because it's such a good spot going against Washington, but the rotation's kind of deep. They have a lot of guys who do just enough that nobody's going to really excel. And the price points aren't jumping out to me. So I don't really know what you do with Orlando. It just feels like there should be something you do with them.
Yeah. So this is what you're kind of looking at doing. I think it's a Wendell Carter situation on DraftKings and then nothing else anywhere on the entire board. And there's a ton of negative leverage that you have elsewhere too. He was kind of one of the guys I wrote up last night. I was curious what his ownership was going to be today because I expected it to be high. It is higher than I thought right now, going at 32% over on DK. 6K is just kind of a misprice. I'm not looking to pay over 7K for Wendell Carter on a 9-game slate. But on DraftKings, where you can play two centers, we can group them together. I mean, there's just so many bodies there. That's the big issue. We've been targeting so many teams that are shorthanded throughout the entire season. We could be looking at the situation next with the Pacers, where they could be playing much more shorthanded, and that becomes more viable than even in a matchup that we want to target, that we've been targeting constantly in Washington. There's just too many bodies available. So Wendell Carter is kind of a play for me. Chuma Okeke, I think, going way over-owned. He's in double-digit ownership over on DraftKings. Not interested in doing that. If I were looking to take any flyer on anybody else on this entire team, we're going to see Terrence Ross play 36 minutes and absolutely assert himself very, very soon. It's going to happen, and I kind of want to be there when it does. As long as he's below 10%, which he's at right now, I would want to get there. But I think just depending on what ownership ends up being, I would assume him to maybe be a little bit higher than that still. But, anybody who sends out a "I am the captain now" tweet, I'm a big fan of, because it means that they're the guy.
100% agree. Miles Turner hurt himself yesterday in the front half of a back-to-back while Domantas Sabonis and Malcolm Brogdon missed the game. These three and Jeremy Lin are all questionable. Eric, who do you think plays for Indiana tonight, and how does it look when accounting for all their variables?
I mean, we just got to wait on that news. And fortunately, I think for some people, I mean, I wish it were after lock because I love the swappability of it. And I like pivoting into guys who are going to be lower owned than if that news breaks ahead of time. But we're going to get this Indiana news before lock, and you're going to have time to adjust to it. Now, Goga Batadze at 3K would be like a stone cold lock for me. Should you get no Turner and no Brogdon? Because I just don't see who else gets minutes at the front, like in the front court. Jakar Sampson, even at 3K, I think would have to be playing minutes in that situation. I don't really see any kind of way around it. Karis LeVert, I loved yesterday. His price went down $100 on DK, which is just wrong to do against Minnesota. So I'm a big fan of going back that direction. And then TJ McConnell, we're going to see gigantically depressed ownership on him coming off of a game where he just burned everybody. I don't mind going right back to it. Now it's a different slate. I think there are some viable pivots in his range that weren't necessarily there yesterday. And so I do want to at least preach some kind of precaution that it's not just an immediately like load up, go like 100% back and try to spike a TJ McConnell game. Not somebody that's like crazy, but a fantasy point per minute producer that's going to be playing 30 minutes who just burned everybody. I think you want to be overweight to the field there if Brogdon is out.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable move. And McConnell was another pacer who killed me yesterday. I can't be mad at Miles Turner for getting hurt. That stuff happens. And I think that's one that you would want to pin on him because he was honestly on pace for an over 40 fantasy point day. Who knows if he would have come through, but that was what he was doing. So can't hate that. McConnell, though, the one thing that concerned me with him, just he wasn't playing as much minutes. He wasn't playing, basically staggering his minutes with Edmund Sumner, which is not something that I think is the best if they're going to play Sumner big minutes. And today, the minutes projection from Awesemo down to 23 for McConnell. It's going to go up a little bit if Brogdon is out, but I think it wouldn't be the craziest thing to maybe make it out more on the conservative side, closer to 25 to 28 rather than 30 to 33, just so you know you're getting McConnell at the most likely outcome it seems to be, which is that they don't want to give him crazy run for whatever reason right now. They'd like to see what Sumner has and maybe let LeVert get more of a chance to do the playmaking he can do. But I really think in this spot, you want to see Turner out. You probably want to see Sabonis and Brogdon out too, because I think it consolidates things really well where you're then going to want a lot of Karis LeVert. Karis LeVert to me looks like it's saying a lot of LeVert really got tough there. And I just leaned into it and then really made it sound like I was dramatizing. Karis LeVert, a lot of Karis LeVert looks good today. If you get Brogdon out, I think Goga Batadze, as Eric mentioned, he was projected, I think today for more minutes from Awesemo early in the day on the chance or the likelihood that Turner's going to be out. Now the minutes projection's been hedged, but if he's going to be in for 25 minutes, he looks like the best value play, I think, on the slate by a pretty wide margin. So Karis LeVert and Goga, if you get a good amount of Pacers out, and if the Pacers are in, then you're probably screwed. And I think these guys are going to be not as appealing today.
Because this is important, I just want to piggyback on it because I think this is a key point to the slate. So one, take into account the opportunity cost of locking in a position. We saw some randomness yesterday. I expect randomness out of a 9-game slate, no matter what, after lock. Something will probably break that you can't account for. So be a little bit, Goga is about the only guy that I think I would be like 100% behind in the scenario where they're all out. I think everybody else, there is at least some apprehension I would have to like being way overweight the field, except for maybe TJ McConnell based on where his ownership comes in at. Jeremy Lamb was a guy that Adam Scherer really put me on yesterday at 3,400. He's questionable again today. Should he go on DraftKings? I think he makes another just go right back to it kind of a spot. Curious what his ownership will get to. I think his play ended up affecting TJ McConnell a little bit more than Sumner. McConnell had seen mid-30s minutes alongside Sumner multiple times. Jeremy Lamb just went out, played really well in that first rotation, and they kind of gave him extended run. He got up to 23 minutes, which coming off of being questionable in those mid-teens minutes was kind of the big difference maker. So I would probably be leaning against TJ McConnell and Jeremy Lamb being in same lineups as opposed to, not that you would be going to Sumner by any means, but I would just show some apprehension. I think that they are a little bit negatively correlated together.
D'Angelo Russell made a surprise return for the Timberwolves last game in a spot where Ricky Rubio also reemerged after he had been marked as doubtful. So Spags, who's in play for Minnesota tonight against Indiana?
I really don't think anybody besides Towns would be in play for me for Minnesota today. And it's tough because, like Russell, I think being in for 27 minutes from Awesemo does maybe give him some degree of a ceiling at his price point on DK 6,400. He feels like he should be in play maybe more than I would think, but really it's a more of a crowded situation for these guys. And that's something that I normally am trying to avoid trying to preach on these shows, to try avoiding, because these guys aren't priced for a situation that's what they're facing today. And that's the case for Rubio, is still a bit priced up for the time without Russell, where he still didn't even show much of an upside. Jordan McLaughlin now a complete non-factor. He's too expensive. Maybe he spikes the tournament upside somehow, but there's just too many bodies in there to really believe in that reliably. So I think just going to Towns, a guy who's mostly his situation is going to be unaffected, or at least not as affected as some of the other guys. He can rebound. He's been assisting better. He's been doing pretty much everything better this year. He's the one tournament play I could see making, and he's still at an expensive price tag. So I think you sort of would like to have more in this spot. As Eric mentioned, this is one of the highest totaled games on the slate, but I don't think anything jumps out because Russell takes enough off the table while not really adding enough for himself.
Cat jumps off the page. I mean, I'm going to be way overweight to Cat at 10-7. Sorry, I came in hot there. My mic was off and then I turned it on and then the whole thing happened. It was my fault. Jordan, you do nothing wrong ever. Let it be known. And that's not even a joke. That sounded like sarcasm. It's not. Karl Anthony Towns, 10-7, 11,400. I know looks just ridiculous over on FanDuel. That's like Jokic without Aaron Gordon type prices. But I really kind of don't care. Right now, he's right at 4.6% over on FanDuel, and I'm going to be gigantically over the field to it. I think that there's enough value at other positions to be going that direction. Obviously, I think I would have some Goga at that far bottom end should we get all the news to break his way. But looking at this top end, I just absolutely love. I mean, we're getting upper 30 minutes there. You're not going to get any substantial run out of D'Angelo Russell here yet. So I really like getting to Karl Anthony Towns in bulk. And I just don't see any other way that I want to be spending a bunch of my money today outside of Westbrook and Cat. Like, that's really kind of what I'm planning on doing on both sites. And I don't see any way around it.
John Wall says he'll play today for Houston versus Dallas after he missed the last few games with knee issues. Eric, is he in play today, or does he just make all of the Rockets look worse?
I mean, makes every single Rocket look worse, except for, I think, Christian Wood over on FanDuel. DraftKings, their prices are just not playable. I mean, with Wood back, with Olynyk there, who I think eats up enough usage and has been playing, right at around 30 minutes in competitive games here of late. I think that makes it a lot tougher to get to anybody on DK, but on FanDuel, 7,700, we know the kind of ceiling that Christian Wood has. I think he's being about appropriately owned over there. And, I think he's still somebody that I'm going to be garnering quite a bit there. But John Wall, maybe take some shots if you really want to go there, but 8,400 on FanDuel just isn't appealing either. It's just a situation where it really tempers expectations for every other piece there. Dallas is a fine matchup, but outside of Wood on FanDuel, I don't see anything that I'm interested in from them today.
Yes, I think as Eric said on DK, I just don't see any of these guys being playable with Wall in. If Wall were out, you could sort of, and again, he says he's playing today. He's still questionable, I think, on the injury report, the last that I saw, but expectation is that he'll be in. I don't see how you can force Kevin Porter in. I think Kevin Porter's been a little bit overprojected. He came through last time out versus Phoenix, but I think it's the case here where if Wall's in, he's just not going to get any chance at all to do those things, to have that upside, to have that near triple-double upside that he showed in that game. If Wall's in, he just takes enough away from Porter where he's rendered useless. And I agree with Eric's take about Wood too. I think on DraftKings, the price not the best for him, and Olynyk and Wood playing some overlapping minutes, which is good for their overall minutes outlook, but not great in terms of Wood's opportunity because he's kind of similar to Kelly Olynyk. He's a more dynamic version. He rebounds better. He blocks better. He does some of that stuff, but he's a guy who's a stretch five at this point. I think Olynyk's sort of a more qualified stretch five. So they are just siphoning enough away from each other that this team is just overcrowded and overpriced for the opportunity that's in front of him tonight.
And speaking of Dallas, Kristaps Porzingis is questionable again today after missing the last few games. Spags, who benefits if he misses yet another game?
I would think you probably see some more love for Josh Richardson. Right now, he looks decent to me with Porzingis being assumed to be in. If he's out, I think Richardson gets enough usage here that he's actually projected for decent ownership already on DraftKings and FanDuel. And I think he might become one of the more popular plays in the slate at a reasonable price that's mid-tier to value adjacent, I think is what we normally say on this show. So that's what I'll go with for J Rich. But I think Maxi Kleber becomes closer to playable. Melly probably sees a pretty big uptick in minutes. He's been playing some good run recently. I don't mind going to Melly, or haven't minded going to Melly. Now at 4K, it's going to be a little bit tougher, especially if we get a value like a Goga Batadze opening up by not having the Indiana bigs. So I think Luka maybe is the one that you could say, safely looks good, whether Porzingis is in or out. And I think maybe you get him in now if we don't somehow have Dallas news. I'd assume we will, but that's just one thing I think you could do and not feel bad about, is taking Luka at a reasonable price tag that would only get better if Porzingis is out. But I guess if Porzingis is in, these guys are perfectly fine. The J Rich, Luka, and Porzingis part of things. But if Porzingis is out, I think just being willing to take on a few more Mavs and probably still capping it, I think max 2 seems about right to me.
I get a little bit worried with this team trying to target other pieces. First of all, we are looking at a large spread. We're looking at a situation where Dorian Finney-Smith has started taking on some usage. I'm hoping last game's a little bit of an outlier, but 24% usage, went for 43 on FanDuel, or on 43 on DraftKings, excuse me, just kind of a ridiculous outing, a little bit of an outlier there. But as he gets a little bit more involved there too, Melly's now there, can play some minutes, whereas before it was just kind of Kleba, pouring in with a little bit of Powell or Boban or whomever else there in the 5. I think that it's a little bit thin to kind of be targeting them at kind of those mid 4 or 5K price ranges. One might pop, like for sure you could be looking at it, but they're going to be garnering a bunch of ownership. And I just think that there's a different route to be taking on this slate. Like Porzingis out doesn't really affect Luka Doncic's rates. I mean, going through that last night was really kind of intriguing. You would think naturally that like it would increase Luka's profile. I think Luka becomes a better tournament play, and I would probably want to be more over the field should Porzingis be in. I think that really kind of makes it interesting because he just kind of fills up the stat sheet no matter what, gets his usage no matter what. It's these other pieces that really kind of thin it out for me. I'm hoping Porzingis is in just for the sake of being able to get to a little bit more Luka than the field and kind of really going stars and scrubs with my builds. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see a whole lot else that I really want to be taking chances on. FanDuel, where you have to play 2, sure, go give it a run. But after watching Melly last time out, getting big minutes, not doing much with them, but just kind of tempers out the rest of that lineup in a way where I don't want to go there.
Gordon Hayward will be out again with Miles Bridges over 30 minutes these last few games without him. Eric, is Bridges or any Hornets a core play for Charlotte versus OKC?
Yeah, so Charlotte, I mean, talk about a team that I don't even recognize. I don't know really what happened and how they overturned this roster. But I mean, you take Gordon Hayward, you take LaMelo Ball off the floor, you throw in a guy who's a low usage dude like Bradley Wanamaker, and everybody else's profile is going to look pretty darn good. Now, Bismack Biyombo taking a shot on some of these centers. I think you can play a little center roulette and try to take your shots there. But Miles Bridges for sure is kind of the featured dude that you want to be looking at. 5K over on DraftKings is just too cheap. PJ Washington, I know everybody hates playing him at this point in time, had that 160 burger that he put up against Sacramento. And since then, it's kind of been a steep decline. But I think you go right back to the well on him. 6,100 on DK, I don't think you need to be going there, but 5,200 on FanDuel at the power forward position. I mean, when you're talking about Melly or Kleba, I mean, I would much rather take my shots on PJ Washington with so much usage now available. Devontae Graham and Terry Rozier really stick out to me on FanDuel as well. I like targeting the guys who are just going to have to score for this team. And OKC is not good at basketball. So I'm happy to go that direction. I'm probably going to do less center roulette than the field at center, trying to figure out who to go to with Zeller and with Biyombo or whatever else. But PJ Washington pretty much gets those locked in minutes at the 4. Feel really good about him. And then Miles Bridges just too cheap on DraftKings.
Yeah, that's where I am with it. Miles Bridges on DraftKings, I think, looks like a core play today, a guy that you should feel decent about. Certainly can have some lower production. Last time out, he played 30 minutes and didn't have a great fantasy day, but the game before that showed a much bigger upside. So I think that's sort of the risk profile of Miles Bridges. And I agree also that PJ Washington on FanDuel looks like a great play on DraftKings. I think he's a guy in the player pool who I wouldn't mind getting any of. Devontae Graham looks a little bit overpriced. I think I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we don't get the Goga Batadze value opening up. If I get a little bit of Brad Wanamaker or Bismack Biyombo, just because these guys are cheap and playing steady rotational run. And I know Wanamaker in particular, nobody loves that, but he's basically playing the Malik Monk role, just a less good version of it by a pretty wide margin. But still, he's playing it. He's getting those minutes, so it's not the worst thing in the world. But Charlotte, I think a decent source of value today going against a team in OKC who's also, fairly shorthanded or at least short on talent. I think it's a pretty good spot to get a few Charlotte guys. And on DK, I think Terry Rozier, tournament stabs seem viable for him. On FanDuel, the price much better, but on DK, he's capable of putting up a 50 fantasy point day. And I think the ownership for him looks reasonable now, but I think, getting close to the field's ownership around 15%, I think seems like not the worst thing just because he can spike a gigantic upside when he's given the opportunity.
Kemba Walker will be out for rest versus New York, while Evan Fournier is out due to health protocols. Spags, does anyone look better for Boston versus the slow-paced Knicks?
Yeah, I think Boston overall looks pretty playable to me. I think Jason Tatum takes enough of a jump upwards. I know on FanDuel he looks like a better play, but on DK still at 9,100. I think that price will fly here against New York. And New York, to their credit, should keep it competitive. So I guess that's a positive, even though they do play slow, do play some quality defense. Jaylen Brown also, like, these guys just get pretty big jumps upwards just because of there not being Kemba Walker out there. Both guys over 31% usage, Tatum over 32. So I think those are nice numbers to look at. And Marcus Smart gains enough here. I know he just burned people the other day, but it's still like a fine play. And, a guy who has some degree of a ceiling. I don't think he's a core play today by any stretch at 6K on DraftKings. FanDuel may be a little bit more of a reasonable play, but I think overall Marcus Smart is one that I don't mind getting, but if you're getting a lot of him, I might be inclined just to knock it down a little, just because chalk Marcus Smart, even with Kemba out, I'm not sure that I would love that today.
So I think for me, Jaylen Brown is the most intriguing guy, simply because you're looking at the small forward position over on FanDuel. And like, where are you going to spend your money? If you don't get Brandon Ingram at 8K there, Kevin Durant's 8,800 and Jaylen Brown, I have them within half a fantasy point of each other. So like Jaylen Brown at 7,700, Anthony Edwards, Bogdanovich is so expensive. It's just kind of like no man's land above 7K there. So if you're trying to like optimize your lineup in a way where it's like raw points on FanDuel, Jaylen Brown 7,700 just sticks out like a sore thumb over there. Less essential. All of these Boston guys are less essential for me on DraftKings. I still liked Marcus Smart yesterday. We had talked about him. He was obviously very, very disappointing. But I think he still makes for a great kind of 6K on FanDuel as well. A spot that's just kind of hard for me to say no to, and 6K on DraftKings as well. I like being over the field, but just by a little bit on him over on DK, maybe less so on FanDuel. But Jaylen Brown, just because of the positional element of it on FanDuel, really kind of the guy who sticks out the most for me from Boston.
All right.
Oh, hello. Are we on?
Are we good?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, what just happened? Are you like,
know.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
The Kayla bot shut down. It has to reset.
You freaked me out. I knocked my camera and I was worried I shut it off again, but we're good. Okay.
Okay. No, I was just watching you. We're going and we're live.
Okay. Jamal Murray is questionable again after Nikola Jokic. Monty Morris and Will Barton picked up a lot of slack with him out last night. Eric, who looks good to you tonight if Murray is out again?
It's the Aaron Gordon experience once more. I hope everybody was able to pivot onto some Bobby Portis. Bobby Portis became the priority when that Giannis news broke beforehand. I just kind of assumed that he would be the starter against Golden State, a team that doesn't really, like, James Wiseman plays 5, but like they don't have like a big center that you're really worried about whatsoever. And so I kind of figured that was going to be the route that Milwaukee was going to take. And it got me to cut into my Aaron Gordon exposure, so I didn't have to get completely screwed over by him yesterday. But I still want to go back to him there, especially because he probably burned a lot of people. And obviously I was above the field still, and he burned me. So I'm happy to go there. We're looking at a little bit of an out of control price tag for Michael Porter, still over 7K. Don't really want to be going that direction. I think Will Barton, still not that intriguing for me, but God, I know on FanDuel I won't be getting to 7,500, but like Aaron Gordon 6,500 over on DK, happy to do that.
I think if Jamal Murray's out, to me, the Monty Morris value becomes more important. Didn't do great yesterday, but that game did get out of hand. I think he could have seen a few more minutes than he did in that spot. If he were, even with the injuries that he's been coming off of, still seemed like there would have been more run for him there if things stayed competitive. Aaron Gordon, I agree, would also take a jump up. He was a guy I wasn't as bullish on a median projection level yesterday, but I do think today, looking at where he is now, if Murray ends up out, I do think he's going to get enough of a jump here for me on DraftKings. 6,500. He definitely has the upside, definitely playing well. There's a lot of interesting pieces out there about how Aaron Gordon's playing. I know the Ringer did one breaking down why he's working so much better. And I think he's been assisted more by Nikola Jokic than he was any of his Magic teammates this entire season. So that's something to note here. He does have a little bit less playmaking upside for himself, but the scoring upside is there. And that's an important thing. But the guy that I think would jump out for me, and I got a good amount to yesterday, he's always a guy that I like, but Will Barton just adds enough in every category. And I think that's, that's really the main thing with Will Barton, is that he's going to do enough of everything in these spots. For me, with Will Barton, I like what he does in terms of just adding a lot of things when you have a guy like Jamal Murray out who does score, does assist pretty well. But I think with Monty Morris being in, it's certainly going to decrease maybe some of the production for Barton, but he played so many minutes yesterday, even with that game getting out of hand, that Barton, I think the rotations for him bode pretty well in the spot, whether, somehow Denver pulls this away or blows them out like they have been everybody recently. I think that, to me, Barton's a play that maybe people sleep on a little bit more than they should. And he is a guy that benefits almost as much as some of these other guys when Murray is off the court.
And finally, for our last bit of key news of the day, Brandon Clark, Justice Winslow, and D'Anthony Melton are out for Memphis tonight, while Jamal Murray will play after being banged up in the front half of their back-to-back. Spags, what Grizzlies do you think benefit from the missing players?
I think really everybody does. And this is something that Eric and I talked about yesterday on Live Before Lock, where I didn't want to recrunch for the Grizzlies because all these guys look too much better to me, where it's like, I don't know who's actually the guy that's going to benefit. And it turned out really all of them were going to benefit. Desmond Bane benefited. Kyle Anderson benefited. I think this just enough guys out there. And we've talked about the Grizzlies enough. They run such a deep rotation, a rec league rotation. I think our pal Greg Ehrenberg has called it before, where it's everybody has to play for them. But in reality, they don't have to all play, and they probably shouldn't all be playing. And just the consolidation for Memphis, I think, makes it so. Kyle Anderson's going to look a little better. Jonas Valanciunas probably looks a little better too. Really, any Grizzly you could play today. John Morant apparently healthy enough to go. Anybody you can get to, just going to look a little better because of the guys that are missing.
Yep, agreed. I don't think there's a lot to add there. J-Val makes a lot of sense. I like Kyle Anderson. Again, I got on him quite a bit yesterday and helped a couple of you. I hopefully make some money on that too. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward what you're going to do in that situation.
10 minutes, 5 segments. Let's do this. The Masters start on Thursday, and we have a PGA deal for you. Buy your first month of Awesemo Plus Golf and get one free with promo code Dustin. That's 60 days of Awesemo Plus Golf for $29.95, which includes projections, ownership projections, our top golfer tools, lineup builder, and more. This deal will also cover the PGA Championship in May, so you're getting 2 full majors slates. This offer is valid through Sunday, April 11th. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. And a fun new segment we have entitled Master's Cabin, featuring our very own Eric Lindquist. As you can tell by looking at him, Eric Lindquist is a big fan of golf. So we have to let him talk golf here for a little. What does he think about the legendary Masters tournament that tees off tomorrow? Does he know things? Let's find out. Eric, the floor is yours.
Oh my goodness. So I'll be on Live Before Lock here with Alex and Ben Rasa. So you'll definitely want to check that out. Those guys are pretty good at the golf DFS thing too. So I want to let it be known that you should definitely check that out. 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 o'clock out here on the West Coast. But this golf course is going to play different than it did in November by a substantial margin. They've really let the greens dry out. I'm emphasizing a lot of scrambling, a lot of putters, a little bit more than normal, just because if you haven't really shown any prowess on these greens before in course history, I'm not really going to want to take some shots on you when they're playing as difficult and as firm and as fast as what they are right now. So as much as I don't like, Jordan Spieth is the one guy. So I say all of that knowing full well that I'm probably going to be underweight to the field on him. I know Jason Roslin's like locking him in 100%. So we are on opposite ends of the spectrum there. But when it comes to DFS golf, there are just so many ways to get it done. If you want to go to some of the higher owned guys just to get leverage, you got to go a little bit on top of the field. If you're just at the field on everybody, you're kind of leaving it up to chance. So try to take some of your stance. For me, Corey Connors is a guy that I'm very high on this week. The Canadian that just kind of is a ball striking guy. I like distance. I like targeting driving distance. I think that's probably true on just about every single golf course on the PGA Tour with how long they are now. But definitely, if you can hit it far and you can get up and down from around the greens and make a bunch of 6 to 12 footers, you're in a good situation going forward. Also, if you're looking for like a long shot on the odds, not just like a bigger number, Louis Oosthuizen is somebody that I'm getting to a ton, both in the betting markets and from a DFS perspective. Big fan of him as well.
And down goes the Kayla camera.
Oh my gosh. Well, you can still hear me though, right?
Yeah, you're good.
What a time. You don't think Dustin will go back to back?
No, I really. So Dustin Johnson's obviously a fantastic play. He plays well at Augusta, won last time around, but this golf course is not going to be a birdie fest the way that it was in November. I really think that we're looking at guys who have played well. I think if you're trying to gauge a course history, I think even looking at a US Open is more comparable to this week because of how firm and fast those greens are right now. It's just going to be a completely different setup. I think it also favors a guy like Jon Rahm, who not only hits it far, but just has really adept touch around the green. Somebody that I'm going to be getting to a lot in DFS as well.
All right, there you have it, folks. Great stuff from Eric. Someone said I need a new camera. This is actually a brand new camera. I think it's a Zoom issue. We're trying to figure it out. So sorry for the technical difficulties. Let's head on over to No House Advantage, prop or not. It's time to take a let's go back to the NBA for no house advantage prop or not. Here are some of no house advantages props of the day for key players. Guys, do you like the over or under on them? And how many points would you assign? We've got Eric Bledsoe over under 25.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. Spags.
Yeah, this is one that jumped out from Awesemo's no house advantage projections, which you can always get for yourself on the site. It's really a 91% chance, according to Awesemo, of hitting the under here. And I think this is a spot that we talk about with no house advantage, where they move the lines around, trying to account for the injury news, the guys going in, guys going out. And this line seems like it was one made for when the backcourt was shorthanded. Now the backcourt's not shorthanded. I guess it still is with Nickeil Alexander-Walker out, but less shorthanded with Lonzo Ball back in. The under here seems pretty good. I think maybe gets a little dicier if Brandon Ingram does get ruled out, but still I think you're feeling pretty confident here about Bledsoe. So for right now, if we're to assume that Ingram is in, it's probably a 9-pointer. If it ends up being that Ingram is out, maybe comes down a little bit more, closer to a 5 or 4-pointer. But this is one that news affected, the line probably not where it should be.
Yep, exactly. I mean, regardless of the situation, the under looks fantastic. So that's going to be one of the higher confidence spots. I forgot to see if I ended up winning on NHA yesterday or not. I'm going to have to pull up. It's like one of the fantastic things where you just like randomly you forget to look. Normally on DraftKings and FanDuel, we're going through those all day, but I forgot that I had set some lineups with you during the NHA segment. So maybe I'll have a little surprise. Hold and see.
I'm surprised that you lost $700.
Well, there's that too. There's that.
Then we've got PJ Washington over under 10.5 points plus assist. Eric.
So I've talked about how I know this guy's burned a lot of you as of late, but the minutes are so secure. There's so much usage to be had. I think he's just a safe bet on the over. Going to be one of the higher confidence guys that I really like to go to. He's going to be a big part of my lineups, especially on FanDuel at that 5,200 number. Just lock him in on NHA as well.
Yeah, I've got him scoring 15.8 points straight away. He's one of those guys that does benefit from not having Hayward out there. Also still no LaMelo, which is another benefit overall. It's really the guys that remain. But this line for PJ Washington, just a little low. And I think the fact, too, that it doesn't include rebounds. PJ Washington's rebounding outcome doesn't get a lot better. He gets better when a guy like Zeller is out, or especially if Zeller and Biyombo are not playing and he's playing the 5. The fact you're focusing on points and assists, those are things that Gordon Hayward adds in a good amount of volume. LaMelo Ball adds in a good amount of volume. Even Malik Monk adds in a good amount of volume. You're targeting a spot that's just going to be short for Charlotte, and a guy like Washington has to fill in. So this line, just not the most efficient. Taking the over on it, I think would be, honestly, might be a 10-pointer today.
Oh, and finally, Anthony Edwards over under 24.5 points. Spags, right back to you.
Yeah, this is one that looks like a pretty good under, according to Awesemo. 74% chance of hitting the under here. And part of the logic of that is just that you're not going to have, you are going to have sort of more guys, and you're not going to have the same situation where it's been empty runway for Anthony Edwards, or it's just him in Towns putting up 30% usage rates. It's not going to be how it is when you have Russell in, when you have Rubio in, when you have McLaughlin in, when you have McDaniels getting some more minutes as well. Like, I think that's something that is just not the best situation for Edwards. And this line is reflecting days before Russell was in there. So you really got to take the under here, because Edwards can get there. He is a crazy scorer who has upside, but just so many minutes, even with Beasley out, there's so many minutes going to guys now that can score buckets and can get him a lot. And I think that's going to be bad for Edwards. So I would say maybe a 7 or 8 point under, I think, on this one.
Yeah, we talk a lot about how circumstances change. Well, his circumstances have certainly changed, and the minutes are going to be directly affected. They still have a Kogi in that starting lineup eating up random minutes for whatever reason. 38 minutes there. You're bringing higher usage guys in D'Angelo Russell on. Cat's playing bigger minutes. Like, there's no reason to be going this direction for Anthony Edwards.
All right, we have 2 minutes. Let's go. Good dog, bad dog, really quickly. Eric, good dog, bad dog, go.
Oh my gosh. All right. I really like, okay. Let's talk that entire Dallas situation. I think that the Rockets are my bad dog. I know Christian Wood being in there is better. John Wall is better, but we're seeing a number that really has come down more towards the Rockets. Now that it's sitting at 10, like get a couple of different sports books around. I like getting on the Dallas side of it. I know that Vegas is reacting to Wall and whatever else. I'm not buying it. I still see Dallas being able to seamlessly cover that one. So I like going that direction. So Rockets, bad dog. I think good dog. We talked about Memphis. Atlanta playing on a back-to-back as well as Memphis. I think both of them. I think this kind of like fits the game script a little bit better for Memphis for kind of a trudgy game. We've seen that line now move up. You can get a 2.5 around a couple bucks. Some of the sharp money's on the other side of it, but I really still like Memphis at 2.5.
I think my good dog is going to be OKC, and it's not that I like them from any sort of like they actually have good players or they're somebody that I really believe in standpoint, but I do think them being a home dog here going against Charlotte being pretty shorthanded. I think Charlotte does end up winning this game, but I do think that OKC can cover, and it wouldn't shock me if they pulled out a win, but I really think that's me. They're one team that jumps out as being a little bit undervalued, 5-point dog at home going against a Charlotte team that's just about as shorthanded as they are. Does some better players, but still just about as shorthanded. The bad dog, and this is where I was thinking OKC for bad dog, but I ended up pivoting because that's the kind of creative force I am here. But San Antonio going to be my bad dog. I think they might get killed by Denver now that I'm looking at it a little bit more. And Murray being in certainly makes it easier, but Denver has just been amazing since getting Aaron Gordon and have figured some things out. He's doing a better job defensively. He's also adding value as a cutter, opening up a lot of things. And I think Denver could really smoke San Antonio. Doesn't mean these guys are bad as fantasy plays, because Denver, if they do blow them out, they're going to have some guys who have outlier performances as we saw yesterday. But I think San Antonio going to have a hard time hanging in this one.
Spags, your fade of the day is?
Fade of the day, I think Svi Mikhailiuk again. I know everybody wants to keep going to him on FanDuel. The price looks okay, but I just don't think the ceiling's that high. And I think that we have some other values that could open up here. So I'll say my poor boy Svi, I'm going to keep beating up on.
Tony Bradley's 25.2% owned on DraftKings, and I do not know why. So I'm going to just let that be known. Tony Bradley, fade of the day.
Awesome. Spags, Eric, thank you to you both. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. The Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock are up next. I'm Kayla Knierim. We'll see you on the tip-off tomorrow.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks, you
guys.
So.
Yeah. No. How you feeling? That chip getting itchy?
I'm just like drained. I mean, I don't feel bad anymore.
So technically you've had COVID?
It felt more like, it felt like the flu.
Yeah. No, I'm not serious about a microchip, by the way, for anyone listening to a hot mic. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive. Kicking this one off a little early today to cover all 9 games on this wonderful Wednesday slate. I'm Dave Loughran on Twitter at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D. Head over there. Give me a follow. While you're at it, follow my boy Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS. A lovely fella over there. All he does is spread love, peace, and happiness. What's going on, man?
Not much. Just another day of late season basketball.
So you got the COVID shot, huh? You got you got one. Was it the J&J only needs one?
Yeah, I got that one. It was whatever. It was a pretty miserable night, but feeling a little bit better right now.
Yeah, you were sick, huh? Yeah, 101 fever.
Yeah, got the fever overnight. Couldn't sleep. It was pretty miserable for like a few hours.
Yeah, well, you're back now. Let's hope it was worth it. Anyway, we got a ton to talk about. We're happy to have all of you guys with us as always. Hit that thumbs up. I don't know what else to say. I'll ask you later on in the show once we got more people here. But hey, if you love the show, if you love the content, you like free DFS content, maybe you might say the best out there, hammer that thumbs up button and subscribe, more importantly, to the channel. It helps us a ton. And we'll always show up on your recommended feed, your browse feature. It makes life a little bit easier for all of us. So hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and we dive into this one. Minnesota. And oh no, you know what? I almost forgot. First question, as always, we've got some question marks again on the books today. Domantas Sabonis, Brogdon, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant's playing, Brandon Ingram questionable. The list goes on. Initial thoughts. What type of build are we looking at today? What are your first impression on this slate?
Yeah, the pricing on DraftKings is really tight today. Obviously, that can change as we get more, unexpected news. But I think we're in a situation where a lot of the teams have kind of been in similar situations for a while now. And if guys are ruled in, like for example on Indiana, pricing is really tight. So I think it'll be kind of an interesting slate. It's looser on FanDuel, but also, again, just waiting on a lot of news. You mentioned Bradley Beal. We have 4 guys questionable in Indiana with Brogdon, Sabonis, Turner, and Jeremy Lamb. You have Brandon Ingram questionable again for the Pelicans. He's missed several games. You have Porzingis questionable for Dallas. You have Maxi Kleber questionable for Dallas. Clint Capella questionable for Atlanta. A ton of moving parts here. Jamal Murray questionable for Denver. It's another slate where you're just going to get a lot of news. Obviously, that's stuff we're waiting on, and there's a pretty good chance that there will be 1 or 2 things that we have no idea it's coming.
Yep, I would assume that's the case too, and that's, of course, why you tune in to Live Before Lock coming up immediately after this show. That means after Adam and myself, you have none other than Josh Engleman and Greg Ehrenberg taking you up till 7 p.m. Eastern time. Minnesota, Indiana, let's dive straight into this one. So on the Minnesota side of the ball, this should be a competitive game between 2 teams that are kind of banged up by injuries, at least one of them. Another one's just not very good. Minnesota +2, 234 total. We got to start with Karl Anthony Towns because it seems unlikely that Miles Turner plays today. I don't necessarily know about Domantas Sabonis, but it feels like a spot where Karl Anthony Towns could do a lot of damage here. I know he's expensive, and that's kind of where we have to focus this conversation. But Towns today against the Pacers, 2-point spread and a total that's jumped from 229 up to 234. How do you settle in on someone like that among the other top priced players on this slate? And there are a decent amount of them.
Yeah, I think the salary is really interesting because I do really like Towns here. I mean, he's been playing huge minutes. He's averaged about 36 minutes per game over the last month. You've seen him a couple times recently push 40 minutes. And, he's obviously a very productive player, averaging about 1.5 fantasy points per minute this year. Not a bad matchup against Indiana. And if Turner's out, it gets even better. Where it's really interesting, though, is he's $100 more expensive than Nikola Jokic on DraftKings. He's like $1,200 more expensive on FanDuel. Jokic, as good as Towns is, Jokic plays similar minutes and he averages more fantasy points per minute. So Jokic is going to project as the better option. I'm really interested to see where ownership shakes out because we know that even if Jokic has the higher median projection and is the better play, for lack of a better word, we know the range of outcomes is similar. Towns can go out there and throw up 60 fantasy points as well. If you get a big ownership gap, that's definitely one spot I think you could look to pivot. Right now on DraftKings, though, about 13.5% ownership going to Towns, about 16% going to Jokic. I think if that's the case, I would rather just go to Jokic. But where it'll probably be even more drastic is on FanDuel because you're if you go to Towns on FanDuel, you're clearly overpaying just to be contrarian. Not even saying overpaying as far as overpaying for Towns, but relative to Jokic, you're just paying a premium for really no reason other than ownership. And so that's always a spot that the center position on FanDuel can get really interesting since you can only roster one. That's a spot where I'd be really interested to see how ownership shakes out closer to lock.
Yeah, right. And you're just looking at it right now. Karl Anthony Towns, 11-4 coming in sub 5%. So you pretty much broke that down in its entirety, but it's an expensive price. So let me then ask you this, because like I said, you hit on it, but is the pay up to be contrarian spot worthwhile if he's, already almost at a mid 11K price point at a single position spot like center on FanDuel?
I think it's doable on FanDuel, especially depending how news breaks. I mean, for example, you have Svi Mikhailuk at 3,800, who he's going to be one of the highest owned guys on the slate, but it's kind of a free square as far as, you can just put him in. It's really hard for him to disappoint. Obviously, we'll talk about him later, but Towns is the kind of guy where, because you have that value, and there's several other spots that are just mispriced on FanDuel too, it's not going to be that tough. I don't think you're not going to have to sacrifice that much to find $1,200 for Towns. I think that if Towns outscores Jokic, it's pretty unlikely that the $1,200 keeps the Towns teams from beating the Jokic teams, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. So with the rest of Minnesota not named Karl Anthony Towns, you've got no Malik Beasley for a while. And then I guess not huge news, but he was getting some rotational minutes. Of course, before D'Angelo Russell came back, Jaylen Noel, but D'Angelo Russell in his first game back, I think it surprised some of us, not that he only played 24 minutes, but how well he played. I mean, Adam, he was excellent, 25 points on 24 minutes, not DraftKings points, 25 real points in 24 minutes. He's 6,400. So normally this wouldn't necessarily be something I'm asking about. D'Angelo Russell's been, I think, a little bit underwhelming in the amount of minutes he did play, but he's 3% projected ownership on DraftKings right now. Do we have a sense that he's going to be significantly limited? Because if he plays, let's say he gets back up to 30 plus minutes against a banged up Pacers team, is $6,400 at virtually no ownership worthwhile, or are you still getting away from something like that in tournaments? Of course, nothing else.
Yeah, only in tournaments, but I do think it's kind of interesting. You mentioned the 24 minutes he played last game. I actually thought that was surprising, but in like a good way. I didn't think he was going to play that many minutes. They had said he was going to come off the bench, and I think the wording was be significantly limited. Yeah. I didn't think we were getting 24 minutes out of Russell in his first game.
So if that's significantly limited, then what is just a little bit limited? 30
Right, exactly. And so I think my interest in him would depend on a couple of things. For one, again, news. Like right now, the shooting guard position is awful tonight. Especially on DraftKings. FanDuel, again, you have Svi at 3,800. But on DraftKings, it's really, really tough. And so I think that if you were going to get like 26 minutes from Russell, the way things stand right now, I'd have interest there just because he's a good fantasy producer, and he can obviously pile up points. If he were to rejoin the starting lineup, I would feel pretty comfortable thinking he's getting like 28 to 30 minutes. If he comes off the bench, obviously he's a lot riskier, but he was out there to close that game and he played 24 minutes. I don't think it's unreasonable to think he gets a couple more minutes here. So if he clearly falls off if news opens up because he's risky as is. But right now, with there not really being shooting guards that look very good, especially again on DraftKings, I think it is kind of interesting looking to Russell and just, hoping that he gets 26 minutes and scores at an efficient rate.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think it's that crazy of an idea. Of course, Edwards wasn't playing as many minutes with as high usage as he was last time Russell was on the floor, but Beasley's also not here either. So kind of a give or take situation. Anything else from the Timberwolves?
Naz Reid on DraftKings, another one that, maybe we get better value opening up, but we've seen him playing more minutes alongside Karl Anthony Towns, which is something that Minnesota had said they wanted to do a couple weeks ago, and then they just never were really doing it. Over the last 4 games, though, Reid's averaged between 8 and 10 minutes alongside Towns, which is, for one, it's good for Towns minutes, but 2, it's good for Reid because, obviously instead of playing like 12 or 13 minutes behind Towns, now he's able to get 18 to 20 minutes. He averages over a fantasy point per minute. Still risky because you're talking about 18 to 20 minutes, but on DraftKings where you can roster him at power forward and he's close to minimum salary, I think Reid's a pretty interesting option because you can't really find players in that price range that offer the same per minute production that Reid does.
All right, so then let's kind of try and break down and then digest this Pacers team. Sabonis questionable. Miles Turner played only 20 minutes last game, as a matter of fact, last night. So second of a back-to-back, and now he's got that ankle injury. So I would think it's unlikely that he plays, but we still don't have any word there. Malcolm Brogdon and Jeremy Lamb are both questionable. And Jeremy Lamb, sure, it doesn't sound significant, but he had a huge game in 23 minutes just yesterday. Of course, only 23 minutes isn't all that strong. And he had 6 blocks or 6 steals and a block. So take that for what it's worth. The point is there are a lot of question marks heading into this game with 3 of their best players on the injury report.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad this is a 7:00 game because there's just so many different ways that this can break. Like you consider all the guys that are questionable, but then it's also one of the best matchups possible against Minnesota. So like if everyone's in, I still think Malcolm Brogdon and Domantas Sabonis are reasonable options. Levert, less so, but on DraftKings at 7,100, he's okay here too. But once you start, thinking about guys that could be out, if Miles Turner is out and Sabonis is in, you're going to get more center minutes from Sabonis, which is really, really appealing. If either of Sabonis or Turner are out, I assume Doug McDermott starts and probably plays 28 to 30 minutes at a cheap price tag. If Brogdon and Sabonis are out, you're probably going to get 28 to 30 minutes from TJ McConnell, who was terrible last night, but gets a bounce back spot here. You probably, if Lamb is in, would get another 20 plus minutes from him at a cheap price tag. And then potentially if Sabonis and Turner are out, you have a minimum salary Goga Batadze, who played about 13 or 14 minutes in the second half after Turner's injury yesterday. If they're both out, I think there's a chance he starts here. And even if he doesn't start, he's probably going to play enough minutes to be one of the better values on the slate.
All right. So let's do it like this before we move on. If just Turner is out, any priorities come into play?
If just Turner is out, I think Brogdon is good just because he's cheap. Sabonis would be a priority because he'd get more minutes at center. Yeah. And I think McDermott looks like a priority, especially on DraftKings where you can roster him at a weak small forward position.
If Turner and Sabonis are out, does that mean that we go to Batadze and just assume that at minimum salary, you've got to take the shot at what we always talk about, a center position where it's much easier just to fall into peripherals, fall into some putback opportunities, fall into some rebounds?
Yeah, especially on DraftKings where you can pair him with another center. It's really difficult if Sabonis and Turner are out to see how this plays where Batadze doesn't play enough minutes to be a good play. Like
especially with Towns on the other side. You can't exactly go super small against a Karl Anthony Towns led offense.
Right. I mean, you're getting 36 plus minutes from Karl Anthony Towns. We just saw, but like I said, Batadze played 13, 14 minutes in the second half yesterday with Turner out. It's really, really tough to see how he doesn't get enough minutes to be one of the better values.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Also get McDermott in the starting lineup most likely.
All right. And then because I want to give our viewers every bit of value we can here. By the way, 200 likes or higher already. You guys are the best. Appreciate you. I knew we'd pull through only a few minutes into this one. If Brogdon is also out with these guys, let's say all three of them are out. Then
then it really opens the door for Karis LeVert. He was mildly disappointing last night, but still gave us a decent game. Pretty drastic price difference between DraftKings and FanDuel on LeVert. If Sabonis and Brogdon are out, 8,500 for him on FanDuel is still fine because it's a good matchup and you're expecting him to be the clear focal point of the offense. But 7,100 on DraftKings just really, really jumps off the page if Brogdon and Sabonis both sit.
All right. Anything else on this one?
If all four, if Lamb is out, if Turner's out, if Brogdon's out, if Sabonis is out, I hate rostering the guy, but you kind of have to start looking to Justin Holiday too, just because he could play a ton of minutes. Edmund Sumner could play a lot of minutes as well if you need a cheap, small forward option.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's not.
Washington Wizards 3.5-point favorites on the road. That tells you all you need to know about this Orlando team. 222.5 total. So another situation, another day, another Bradley Beal questionable day or game. And now he is sitting questionable with that same hip injury that he's been dealing with. Russell Westbrook has pushed up above 11K. Actually, he's held above $11,000. And then on FanDuel, he's 11,000 even. So let's do it like this. If Beal plays, do we still go to Westbrook knowing that his ownership won't be even close to as high as it will be if Beal is out? Is there still enough meat left on the bone at this salary to like Westbrook in this spot if Beal is active, knowing that you're going to get him at 1/4 of the ownership that he would be in the event that Beal once again sat out?
I think that there is, but if Beal is in, then it at least starts to depend on what value opens up. If you get Goga at 3K and some of these other value plays we'll talk about that come through, it's going to be easy enough to get the Westbrook. I mean, you have to keep in mind this guy's averaging a triple-double even in games that Beal has played. He's averaging
on the season.
He's averaging over 1.5 fantasy points per minute in games that Beal has played this year. He's averaging 1.75 DraftKings points per minute in the games without Beal. So he's still a very good play, especially like you said, the ownership naturally will come down. The difference is just if Beal's in, it kind of depends on the value that's available, how much I'll be able to get to Westbrook, how much interest I have. If Beal's out, I don't really care what value is out there. I'm going to find value that lets me get Westbrook in the lineup.
Yeah, and that's pretty simple explanation that makes a lot of sense. It's crazy, man, looking at the ownership on DraftKings over at Awesemo.com. You guys know that if you wanted to check our ownership out, you can do that. And if you're a premium member, and also use the promo code $9 for 9 days, 9 days for $9. If you use the promo code starting9, go to Awesemo.com/promos. for baseball, all of our baseball content, everything we have, ownership, player projections, the amazing top stack tool, top pitcher stool, lineup builder, every bit of tools, every bit of information and data that you need to be successful at baseball. Just ask Awesemo. Alex Baker, #1 ranked DFS player, won a ton of money playing baseball using these very tools that are on the site. This is everything that he uses to have a ton of success playing it. For $9, you get 9 days, a third of a month for $9. We already have people tweeting us left and right. Oh, I got the promo, paid it off easy in the first couple of days. It's $9, man. Check it out. And check out our premium Slack chat when you do that as well. That's huge. Get in there, ask the pros the questions in the office hours, join the community, and, become part of the family over here at Awesemo. Starting 9, all one word, awesemo.com/promos. And I knew I could trust Jordan to have that up on the screen. Jordan Klein putting in that work. So what I was saying before I got sidetracked is Russell Westbrook on DraftKings is around 13%, 14%. No one else is above 1% on the Washington Wizards right now, Adam. And on FanDuel, you've got Westbrook at 16, Beal is at 10, and then no one else is above 4. But that's crazy on DraftKings. There's just nothing going to anyone but Westbrook.
Yeah, and that's assuming Rui's in as well. He's questionable.
Yeah.
And Robin Lopez is questionable. I mean, this is another team where, if Beal is out, if Rui's out, and if Lopez is out, then you have Alex Len looking like a viable option. You're going to get a ton of minutes for Denny Avdia, who's gotten more expensive and isn't very good, but still plays a lot of minutes in that situation. You could potentially get another start from Paulo Neto, who was terrible last game, but overall or normally isn't that bad of an option. So another team with moving parts. But if Beal is in, I do like the FanDuel salary, 8,300. I mean, that's just a really cheap price tag. Beal has struggled since the break, but I kind of think that with how much time he's taken off, they're waiting for him to get healthy before he comes back. It seemed like he was playing through an injury coming out of the All-Star break, and then, obviously it got worse. So, if he plays, I do think he's a good play on FanDuel.
Okay. On the other side, you're talking about the Orlando Magic, and there were a few guys that were questionable today. It looks like all of them should be good to go. Michael Carter-Williams, Kem Birch, and Cole Anthony making his triumphant return. It's about 2 calendar months since he has last played. So that's significant. Expect him to be limited coming off of that rib injury. This is just such a bad team right now, Adam, from top to bottom, even though they're getting some reinforcements in. But Wendell Carter Jr. pulling a ton of ownership on DraftKings, up around 35% today for the Orlando Magic. On FanDuel, it is not the same at all, given that he's now 7,300, but $6,000 on DraftKings. Is the juice worth the squeeze on Wendell Carter Jr. tonight?
Yeah, I mean, we need confirmation that he's starting, but assuming that he is, I think he's pretty clearly underpriced on DraftKings in particular. A really good matchup with Washington. I think that goes without saying. But the last 2 games, Kem Birch was out. You got Carter in the starting lineup. He played 34 plus minutes in both games. The game before that with Birch started that game, but Carter started the second half. Carter started overtime. He ended up playing 26 minutes in regulation, 31 minutes overall. I'm assuming he's going to start here. And if he does, I expect at least 30 to 32 minutes out of him. He's been productive since joining the Magic. He's averaged 1.23 DraftKings points per minute in his 5 games with Orlando. And, he's someone that we saw even in his time with Chicago. He's a pretty productive player when he's on the floor. He just deals with foul trouble in Chicago. He kind of was just dealing with getting yanked in and out of the rotation, or not out of the rotation, but, losing minutes to guys like Thaddeus Young as well. So if he starts here at 6K, I think he's a very good option against the Wizards.
Anybody else for Orlando?
I think you can look to some Terrence Ross in tournaments. You're not going to feel super confident at that price point for him, but he does have about a 29% usage rate in the games that he's played since Vooch and Gordon were traded and Fournier was traded. And, again, this is a Washington team that's going to give him plenty of open looks. He's the kind of guy that can get hot. He's scoring dependent, but, he can really light it up against this Washington team.
All right, let's go to New York and Boston then. The Celtics playing their second of a back-to-back. The New York Knicks also playing their second of a back-to-back here. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, they're not. They played on Monday against Brooklyn. But the Knicks have Randle up at the top, $9,900 on DraftKings, paying a premium for him. And it's something Josh and I talked about this morning. So many teams are dealing with injuries. They're dealing with banged-up players, whether it's this, that, COVID protocol, although that seems to have died down a little bit in the NBA. This feels that way, right? Haven't heard as much COVID protocol lately.
Yeah, knock on wood, it'll probably happen in 20 minutes.
I got to stay optimistic, brother. They're a healthy team, though, is what I'm saying. And it just kind of makes them less appealing than they already were, unless you see something I'm missing.
No, not really. I mean, the Knicks, you're basically, for me, you're just looking at Julius Randle, and even he is, I think, more of a luxury than anything else on this slate. Power forward is a little bit deeper than shooting guard, a little bit deeper than small forward right now. So it's not that Randle's a bad play, but he, is just a little bit more expensive than Jason Tatum at the top of the power forward position. And then you do have some value at the position as well. He's averaged about 1.3 DraftKings points per minute in the games he's played with Rose and with Peyton this year, which obviously is really good. He leads the league in minutes per game over the last month with just shy of 38 minutes per game. So Randle's a good, I think he's a good play. I don't think he's a priority at his salary, though.
Okay. So then Boston, pretty embarrassing. Not embarrassed, I shouldn't say that. Pretty bad loss yesterday to the Sixers. They continue to slide here under Brad Stevens. Robert Williams, we talked about, hey, let's see how he does against Joel Embiid. Spoiler alert, in case you didn't watch that game. It didn't go well. Embiid had 35 points. He got to the line 20 times, and Robert Williams fouled out. You ready for this? Fouled out in 14 minutes. Listen, I like Robert Williams. I really do. I think he's a good young player, but that was that real true test. You and I talked about it at length here. Great defensive player in Embiid, great offensive player in Embiid. It went about as bad as you could have ever imagined it could go.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, it's obviously a better spot for him here. Like, the Knicks are a tough matchup. They're a slow team. They're good defensively, but he doesn't have to deal with Joel Embiid. So on that, from that standpoint, it's a pretty good bounce back spot. My concern is that Tristan Thompson is not on the injury report. He's been out for a while now. My best guess is that you get something like 28 minutes for Williams, 20 for Thompson, somewhere in that range. Williams' salary is still cheap enough where, you're talking about someone that averages 1.3 to 1.4 fantasy points per minute. If, for example, you were looking to get a similarly priced guy to Wendell Carter that gives you a similar ceiling at lower ownership, Williams is a guy you could look to. But with Thompson being back, I think that, and still, a pretty unappealing matchup with the Knicks, I don't think that Williams is really a priority here. So more of a high upside, relatively low floor tournament play.
GMC clearly just trying to troll me, I'm assuming, says, Embiid going to hurt himself with all those flops. No wonder his knees are bad. I saw somebody tweet the other day, right? That was like, Karl Anthony Towns is this high in offensive fouls, like one of the top. Joel Embiid only has this many offensive fouls in the season. Karl Anthony Towns has only gotten this many fouls called against him, and Embiid has had this many fouls called against him. And then he goes, clear evidence that the NBA officials use discretion in who they call fouls against. No, do you want to talk about a complete absence of context, Adam? All he said was, this guy gets more fouls called and this guy doesn't, so he's unfairly judged. Instead of saying, like, maybe Joel Embiid just might be the best, along with James Harden, at getting fouls called against it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, maybe he posts up more than Karl Anthony Towns. Maybe he attacks the rim more than Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, I don't know. That's so silly. It was so silly. He wouldn't respond to me. I tried to bait him into a response. I tried to do an Adam Scherer.
I was about to say, when you're the one trying to bait people on Twitter, it really got to you.
Yeah, exactly. I should have just CC'd you in that. Like, hey, take care of him for me. Do you like anything else from Boston, though?
Yeah, you don't have Kemba here. You don't have Evan Fournier. So it does open up some stuff, even though the matchup's not really appealing. I think Jason Tatum looks like a pretty good option. He's fairly priced, I think, at 9,100 on DraftKings, 8,800 on FanDuel. 1.3 DraftKings points per minute for Tatum this year in the games he's played without Kemba. So I think he looks fine. Jaylen Brown, I think, is one of the better small forward options. The position right now is pretty weak, but you have very fair pricing on Jaylen Brown. He has about a 30% usage rate in the games without Kemba. So I think that those two look pretty good. Marcus Smart maybe shows up in some lineups if the shooting guard position stays as weak as it is. He's averaged 0.94 DraftKings points per game in the games without Kemba and with Brown and Tatum this year. So I think he's fine, but clearly comes in behind Tatum and Brown for me.
Okay. Yeah, Ryan, Philly fans are more wishy-washy than a Kenmore Deluxe washer. Get that shit out of here. You have no idea what we're like. Let's talk about New Orleans and Brooklyn. And we're cruising through this. We might actually have to slow down for this one, although we'll get a couple of other spots that we'll certainly spend a decent amount of time on. The New Orleans Pelicans, 8.5-point dogs against the Nets. They just can't catch a break, but they've got so many good players that they could just rotate Irving, Durant, and Harden out every other game once they're healthy. Just sit one and then sit one and then sit one. And they'd still be towards or at the top of the conference, Adam. So I don't think there's much to worry about, but there will be no James Harden today. There will be no Landry Shamet for whatever that's worth. On the New Orleans side, though, as you can see on the screen, Brandon Ingram, questionable to play. Kira Lewis Jr., questionable. Of course, Hart and Nickeil Alexander-Walker are out for an extended period of time, and Zion is back. So with this news, with the Brandon Ingram news questionable, like if he's out, is there even anything left, given that all of these guys' prices have kind of been fixed and you're starting to see them mirror their recent production and you're not getting real discount on any of them?
There's not a ton, but I still think that it benefits Zion. I think it benefits Lonzo Ball, who had one of the most ridiculous first quarters you're going to see yesterday. He ended up playing 29 and a half minutes in 3 quarters, had like 52 DraftKings points. But in the first quarter, he had 0 actual points. And he had 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and a block. I think at one point he had 40 more DraftKings points than actual points in that game. But which, on one hand, it's fluky. On the other hand, it just goes to show how much he offers in the way of peripherals, even when he's not scoring. And if Ingram's out, it does, give him more scoring opportunities. And, he can get more assists as well, plays big minutes. So, if Ingram's out, you're getting more opportunities for Zion. You're getting more opportunities for Lonzo. They are priced up, though, to where I think more of secondary options than priorities here.
Okay. Thank you for the super chat. Double R says, since the All-Star break, Josh, I hope you're listening to this. Ben Simmons is averaging 12 points shooting, 45% from the field, 54% from the free throw line. Can the Sixers win like this? I'm a Philly guy. Wanted to know another fan's perspective. No, they can't. Not with Ben Simmons playing the way he is. Great defensive player, but you got to do more on the offensive end if you're going to beat a team like Brooklyn, and I don't think they got it in them anyway. So do you have anything else for New Orleans? Like, is there anything we want to hit on here? Is Lonzo overpriced, or do we like the fact that his huge minutes in peripherals have been through the roof lately?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a little overpriced for his average projection, but I do think he gives you a high ceiling. You only have to go back to last night to see what he can do. But again, I think he would benefit if Ingram is out. Either way, though, I don't think he ends up being a priority. Just looks like a better play if Ingram's out. I don't really see a whole lot behind or other than Zion and Lonzo, though. If Ingram's out, obviously you can make the case for guys like Bledsoe or Adams, but you're getting healthier in general, and those guys are all getting more expensive.
Okay, we were asked to touch on Najin Marshall, played 30, 24, and 28 minutes over his last 3 games. He started actually getting significant run at the start of April. That also coincides with when most of this New Orleans Pelicans team was sidelined. What do you think he gets today? And is there any value in someone like him, just given that he's so cheap and there's not a ton of value right now?
I'm not too interested there. He is someone that depends on Brandon Ingram, but I also think the 28 minutes he played yesterday was misleading. If you look at Popcorn Machine, look at the rotations, he did have a nice stint in the first half where he played the first 8 minutes of the second quarter. He had played
blowout run.
He had played the final 5 minutes of the first quarter as well, but he played 1 minute and 43 seconds at the end of the first half when James Johnson picked up his second and third fouls. Then James Johnson picked up his 4th foul 3 minutes into the third quarter. Marshall played the entire rest of the third quarter, and then he played 4 minutes of garbage time at the end of the game. If James Johnson's not in foul trouble there, I think you're getting like 5 more minutes or so for James Johnson. I think you're probably getting a few less minutes for Marshall, and then also you have the garbage time. So, if Ingram's out, if Lewis is out, maybe Marshall gets enough minutes to be viable, but I think you probably just get enough value opening up between now and lock that Marshall doesn't end up grading out that well.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. But yeah, if Ingram plays, there's just zero, and Ingram absolutely has to be out for you to be considering him at all. So just keep that in mind if this is someone you're looking to roster today. The Brooklyn Nets will get Kevin Durant back in the rotation today. He hasn't played since the 13th of February. So you're going on almost 2 calendar months since Kevin Durant's been on the floor. James Harden is out with that hamstring injury. He's going to be out for at least 10 days. I'm assuming it'll be longer than that. He won't be reevaluated for another week and a half. And then Kyrie Irving has jumped up above $10,000 on DraftKings. If you want to play Kyrie Irving on FanDuel, you're going to be getting him at 13% ownership around and $10,400. So against the Pelicans, Adam, 233.5 total, one of the highest on the slate. Assuming Kevin Durant is limited, I don't see why it wouldn't be. And knowing that Harden is out, is there a spot here in our lives for Kyrie Irving or in our lineups?
There's a couple considerations here, and it really comes down to ownership in tournaments for me. I wrote in the deep dive today that Kyrie, you could see a situation where, or I thought you could see a situation where Kyrie's just getting like single digit ownership, and you're getting a lot of ownership going to Luka Doncic and a lot.
Can I interrupt you real quickly? Brogdon, Turner, Sabonis, all unlikely to play today. Jeremy Lamb probable.
Yeah, and so Jeremy Lamb ends up being a really good value here. McDermott, probably Goga, McConnell. Yeah, just play a bunch of Pacers.
Okay, well, actually, let's do this. After Brooklyn, let's jump back real quickly and just tackle that for anyone that wasn't here at the beginning, now that we've gotten pretty definitive news.
For sure. So what I thought could happen and what I think should happen is that Irving should be like very low owned, and you should get a lot of ownership going to Westbrook, a lot of ownership going to Luka. Irving's averaged 1.36 DraftKings points per minute in the games he played with Durant without Harden this year. Maybe that rate goes up a little bit if Durant's limited, but he's very good. It's a good matchup, but he's just not on the same level as guys like Westbrook and Luka. Right now we have all three guys, Durant, Irving, Luka, and Westbrook, projected for between 12 and 20% ownership on DraftKings. If that's the case, I'm fine just going with Luka and going with Westbrook and pretending Kyrie doesn't exist. But if Kyrie's ownership comes down and those guys go up, then he starts to become somewhat interesting. Kevin Durant, I expect to be limited. I haven't seen that confirmed. I haven't seen a minutes, a number, but I think everyone expects him to be limited. I think that's clearly the most likely case. The reason he's interesting, though, is right now we have him projected for less than 1% ownership on DraftKings. I think that probably comes up to like a few percent. But small forward's a pretty weak position. There's not a ton of upside at it. It is a really good matchup. Durant obviously is fantastic. We don't know. I mean, there's a greater than 0% chance Durant plays like 32 or 33 minutes. I don't think it's super likely, but if he did and nobody's rostering him, it's just a situation where there's probably a little bit more uncertainty in his playing time here that people are going to give it credit for. And if he is really low owned, I think that there's some merit in tournaments just because it is a good matchup and it is a pretty weak position.
Okay. Now we get to the peripheral options for Brooklyn, and that usually means that we won't have a ton to talk about. It usually means if you look at ownership, it's going to be like one guy and then it falls off a cliff. Josh had actually brought up LaMarcus Aldridge today on the strategy show, which you should check out. It's Monday through Sunday, every day of the week, 10 a.m. Eastern time, the NBA strategy show. Or you can listen to it in podcast form, where all of our shows are available after they drop on the YouTubes, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever you want, and you don't want to leave your phone open, you don't have YouTube premiums, or maybe something like that, you're working, whatever. Listen to it in podcast form. However you want to listen is fine with me. Leave a review and a 5-star rating, too, while you're at it. So Brooklyn, very, very common. Same thing as usual, Adam. You got Kyrie and then Joe Harris a little bit on FanDuel. Like 5% ownership going to Aldridge on DraftKings. But all in all, it's the same thing we see almost every day with this Brooklyn team.
Yeah, if I were going to someone other than Irving or Durant, like I think Aldridge is the guy. He's playing around 30 minutes, and it's a perfectly fine matchup against the Pelicans. He's someone else that, I think like Wendell Carter Jr. in that price range just looks like a better play. But I think that's very obvious to everyone. So Aldridge is certainly the kind of guy where if you end up on a similar roster construction to what the optimal lineups are going to look like, you can just kind of make Carter into Aldridge, maybe switch one other player, and you're at least getting a lower owned team that has a similar upside. But, I do think that it's more of just a contrarian tournament play.
Okay. Let's take a step back here and revisit the Indiana Pacers. So, oh God, the Eagles re-signed Jordan Howard. Man, making big moves, boys. Huge things happening in Philadelphia these days. Jordan Howard.
May as well just punt the season with how good Washington's going to be.
I can't tell if that is facetious or serious.
For the first time in my life, it was serious.
There's a good chance Washington finishes 500 this season, sure. And they could win the division like that.
I mean, I think they're going to be legitimately good.
Really?
Yeah.
You think their offense is going to have enough firepower to win games?
Yes, more than enough.
Really?
I think their offense is one of the most exciting offenses in the league this year.
Wow. Okay, so I really hope that you're going to be throwing down some futures bets on them.
I don't think I've ever made a futures bet in my life, but
I'll book it for you if you can't bet in Maryland.
I'll just drive to the border herd.
All right. Grab him to win the Super Bowl, man. You heard it here first. Adam's got the Skins. He's got the football team winning the Super Bowl this season. All right. That's what you said, right?
Yes, exactly what I said.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. You think they win the division though, right?
Yeah.
They should. I mean, they're not that bad.
Yeah, I don't know what the line is, but yes, I think they win the division.
Indiana Pacers. Let's go back just for a second here. Someone goes, Washington isn't going to finish in our premium Slack chat. Washington isn't going to finish with a 500 record in a 17-game season. Touche, sir. You got me.
Good point.
Yeah. No Sabonis. Well, sorry. Doubtful to play. Same with Brogdon. Same with Turner. Same with Jeremy, or not Jeremy Lamb. He's going to play. So let's just revisit it quickly. We've got plenty of time. How are you proceeding now that we've got 3 of their starters not likely to play?
Yeah, so we'll have to see what the starting lineup looks like here. My guess is that you get Sumner, LeVert, Holiday, McDermott, Goga, in which case Goga's a clear top value. McDermott's a good play. LeVert is a really good option. Has about a 26% usage rate and a 26% assist percentage without Sabonis or Brogdon this year. So he would look really good. And then you have Jeremy Lamb at close to minimum salary, probably playing, 22 to 24 minutes at least here. He played about 23 yesterday. The last time he played without Brogdon, he played like 28. And you have to keep in mind, it's a really good matchup against Minnesota as well. So, all of those guys look good. You can certainly get to some Justin Holiday as well. If you're playing a lot of tournament lineups, you can get to some Sumner at a cheap price tag. It basically just, it just opened up so many good plays from Indiana. TJ McConnell as well probably plays around 30 minutes here in a nice bounce back spot from last night.
All right, good stuff. Yeah, TJ McConnell, as soon as I'm like, man, is he not one of the most unheralded players in the league? Great bench player. And boy, in big spots, he doesn't turn the ball over. 5 turnovers and 20 fantasy points later. Certainly ate my words on that one. But you're saying you're willing to go back to the well a little bit here on McConnell?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, he's still cheap. His price tag actually went down a little bit on DraftKings from yesterday.
Memphis and Indiana. Let's make this one happen. The Grizzlies 2.5-point dogs, 226 total against the Hawks. I got to ask you, Adam, what's going on with Jamal Murray? Like it's been tough to watch. This dude has looked like, Ricky Rubio from a DFS standpoint, from a statistical standpoint lately, not actually Ricky Rubio, but when you look at the numbers, dude, the shot volume is through the floor. He's hardly getting to the free throw line, even when his shot volume is down. The usage is low. I don't know what to think.
Yeah, he hasn't been very good this year. And it's, from an NBA standpoint, but also it has translated to DFS. Like he's still been a good producer. He's around 1.15 fantasy points per minute, but it's been pretty disappointing. Like I thought he would take a step forward. I thought he would be better than that this year. The salary is cheap enough where for someone with his talent level and his involvement in the offense, there is still a pretty high ceiling. I thought there was a chance he wasn't going to play today after getting injured at the end of yesterday's game, but not on the injury report. There is upside there, but it's just been really hard to rely on him this year because, for one, the production hasn't been as good as you would hope. And for two, he's averaging about 32 to 33 minutes per game over the last month, but that's just a little bit less than a lot of guys in his price range as well. So you're getting a little bit less production on average. You're getting a little bit less playing time on average. And it kind of just, pushes him behind some other guys and makes him more of a secondary option.
It does. Thank you for the super chat, Gene. Appreciate you. He says, time to root for the Giants, Laffy. Nah, I got to root for the Eagles. I'm not wishy-washy like a Kenmore Deluxe or whatever the hell that shit was you were talking about. But, yeah. And by the way, appreciate all the super chats. But if you want to do something for yourself, maybe treat yourself, feel free not to super chat. You got some pocket change you were thinking about giving to us a few bucks. Use it to hit that join button. Get the badge. I know it's just a badge. Who cares? Just some emojis, whatever. But it's fun. And it's cool to have that type of stuff. So welcome to the team for all of you guys that already have that. But yeah, that little join down there, I think it's $2.99. So it's $2.99. You get the badge. It goes up. You get gold, silver, platinum, diamond, Awesemo gradient once you're here long enough, and some pretty sweet emojis that you can check out down there as well. I don't know. It's up to you. Do what you want. Okay. So outside of John Morant, is there anybody that we look to for the Grizzlies on a night where you've got no Brandon Clark, no DeAnthony Melton, and no Justice Winslow? Not big injuries, but rotational pieces.
Yeah, I think Kyle Anderson's the guy that really sticks out here. $5,500 power forward on DraftKings, $6,300 small forward on FanDuel. He's been better without Brandon Clark this year. It just means he gets more minutes at the 4. Winslow being out helps him as well. He's averaged 1.22 DraftKings points per minute in 6 games with Morant and Joval active and Clark inactive this year. 1.05 with all 3 active. So that rate probably comes down a little bit, but it does benefit him when Clark is out. I think that Anderson was a bigger priority on this slate when we thought guys on Indiana might play, but still a pretty good value option, especially on DraftKings at 5,500. You can certainly look to Joval in tournaments. That's something that you really can always do. Doesn't play as many minutes as some of his counterparts at center that are similarly priced, but produces at a higher rate than most of them. So always someone you can look to in tournaments.
All right. And forever saying that Ja Morant probably won't play. Well, he's not on the injury report.
Yeah.
So Ja Morant will play unless he pops back up on the injury report. But I don't think that'll be the case. Atlanta, Danilo Gallinari's questionable. Of course, John Collins out for an extended period of time. So you could lose potentially another front court member in Gallinari today. And then you still have no DeAndre Hunter. So pieces that we've adjusted to, salaries have adjusted to that as well, Adam. But there are a couple spots I want to talk to you about, starting with Trae Young. On a night where you have a lot of expensive players, Trae Young is one of them, but his price continues to drop, kind of reflective of his performance against Memphis today at home in a game that has a respectable 226 total. Any love for Trae Young against the Grizz?
Yeah, I mean, I like the price point here. He had a big game last night against New Orleans, played about 31 minutes, lost a few minutes to garbage time. His usage goes up without John Collins. Production on average doesn't necessarily change too much. He hasn't shown the same efficiency, but the ceiling gets higher whenever you see usage go up. His playing time has come down a little bit since Lou Williams entered the rotation, but still, should get 33 to 35 minutes if this game's competitive. Memphis has been a solid defensive team, but also one of the faster teams in the league. And really, the price tag just stands out. And it's kind of interesting because I think he's underpriced for his ceiling without a doubt, but he's not so underpriced that I expect him to be one of the highest owned guys on the slate. So whenever that's the case, it makes a guy pretty appealing in tournaments because you can very easily get Young just really, really outperforming that salary. So you also have Clint Capella questionable here, where if he's out, you're just getting, I think, even more of Trae Young carrying this team.
So Atlanta's another team we got to pay close attention to.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I don't really know what happens if Capella sits, because when he's missed games earlier this year, John Collins has been there and John Collins has gotten the starts at center. I don't know if Okongwu starts and, how many minutes he plays if he does. He played 20 minutes yesterday. So, I would think if he starts, he gets like 24, but you could see more minutes for Nathan Knight as well. If Gallinari's out, if Capella's out, that's a very, very shorthanded front court for the Hawks. Very
much so. And this makes me think, though, Capella popped up late on the injury report.
Yeah, normally not a very good sign for someone's status.
Exactly, especially when it's, what does he have, a sore Achilles or something?
Yeah, normally not an injury teams want to mess with. It's the second half of a back-to-back.
Yeah, when you pop up that late, it feels like this is a spot. I'm not saying he's going to be out, but it feels like a spot where you wouldn't at all be surprised if Capella's out. So just quickly, because you kind of hit on it, but let's close this out. If Capella and Danilo Gallinari are both joining John Collins on the sidelines, does that put anyone as a top priority option for us? Okongwu, God, do you think Fernando comes and gets 18 minutes? Like, what are we going to see here if you had to guess under McMillan?
My guess is that Okongwu would start and that you would get some sort of either 2 or 3 man center rotation between Okongwu, Knight, and Fernando. I think that on DraftKings, Knight would be the guy I would take. I'd be most inclined to take a chance on because he has power forward eligibility, whereas Okongwu and Fernando are both centers. We already know that we probably are going to have a good center value in Goga. We have Towns, we have Jokic, we have centers, we have Carter, we have centers we want to get. So I don't really love the idea of punting both spots necessarily. So I think Nathan Knight would be the first guy I take a shot on out of that group. But certainly if you're playing multiple lineups, you can look to Okongwu, you can look to, I don't know if I'd look to Bruno Fernandez. You can look to Okongwu, you can look to Knight if Okongwu's starting.
Okay. D'Angelo Russell will have a low 20s minute limit again today. So
yeah, I think Russell pretty clearly get downgraded as soon as, well, for one, coming off the bench again, but for two, as soon as all that stuff on Indiana opened up, it just, now you're talking about, like on DraftKings, for example, you're talking about a $6,800 Russell playing 24 minutes or Karis LeVert playing without Sabonis and Brogdon for $300 more.
Yep. All right, let's make a monster push to 500 likes here. We got about 150 to go. I'm going to say thank you in advance because I know this is going to happen. I'm going to blink my eyes. We're going to be well over 500. Shit, maybe at 800. I don't know. One can dream. Atlanta, outside of all of these other guys that we've touched on, Trae Young, Capella potentially being out, Danilo Gallinari possibly being out. Do we look to anybody else here that might have in some form or fashion, value for us tonight?
If Gallo and Capella are out, it just opens up so many minutes that I think a $5,100 Herder or a $6,500 Bogdanovich both become reasonable options as well. I'm not sure they become priorities just because, again, you have to rank them alongside these Indiana guys. But, I do think you've been getting a lot of minutes from Bogdanovich anyway. He's been playing better recently than he was earlier in the year. Kevin Herder has rejoined the starting lineup. I think you would get 30 plus from him if Gallo and Capella are out. So both of those guys would look better too.
Okay. We've got 5 down, 4 to go. Dallas and Houston now. Kristaps Porzingis is likely to play. Maxi Kleber is questionable going into this one. The Dallas Mavs are 10-point favorites against the Houston Rockets. I'm looking at Luka here in a really, really favorable spot. And as we've said so many times, Kristaps Porzingis being in or out really doesn't have as big an impact on Luka as you'd think it would. He's pretty expensive at $8,600 on DraftKings. Luka is up there at $10,900. So with Harden out, you get Towns $200 cheaper than Luka. You have Westbrook $200 more expensive. If Beal sits, we're clearly going to see Westbrook far significantly higher owned than Luka Doncic. But if Bradley Beal plays, then maybe we're looking at things a little bit differently here. How do you break all of this down? And feel free to factor in the whole Bradley Beal news, because with them being so close in price, both of them having solid enough matchups, I do think it might be a worthwhile conversation to have.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because one thing you see typically is that whenever the second highest usage player or highest usage player, whatever, gets ruled out, everyone just flocks to, in this case, Luka, or Westbrook on, the Wizards. But Luka really has never shown that he produces at a higher rate without Porzingis. Last year he averaged fewer fantasy points per minute in games without Porzingis. This year he's averaged 1.52 DraftKings points per minute without Porzingis, 1.63 or 1.64 in games with him. I'm not saying necessarily that I think, forever that he's going to lose production, but there's nothing that suggests he does better. I think that he should basically just be viewed as the same play. But if Porzingis is out, you're going to get more ownership going to Luka, most likely. Westbrook, if Beal is out, you're going to get more ownership going to him as well, but he actually deserves it. He goes from 1.5 to 1.75 fantasy points per minute without Beal. Usage goes up, everything goes up, production goes up. So he should get a lot more ownership. So I'd be really interested to see what happens with the ownership. There is enough value on the slate. I think you're going to be able to play Westbrook and Luka together. If Porzingis is out, I'm not really downgrading Luka, but just keep in mind that there's a pretty good chance that if Porzingis is out, you're going to see Luka's ownership increase, and it really should be about the same as it would if Porzingis were going to be in.
All right, so can we talk about Porzingis a little bit here? He's $8,600 on DraftKings. I would expect him to, get a full allotment of minutes. $8,400 on FanDuel. If you're looking at ownership, he's coming in around that 13% mark on FanDuel and down around 5% on DraftKings. Of course, $8,600 is a pretty lofty price point to get to today, especially on a 9-gamer. Does Kristaps Porzingis or any of these other lesser discussed guys stand out to you in a spot against just a bad Houston Rockets team?
I don't see a whole lot. Josh Richardson was someone I had some interest in at small forward earlier in the day, but I think he gets downgraded with, all the news opening up. Porzingis, if he plays, is certainly someone you could look to in tournaments. If Porzingis is out, you also have Maxi Kleber questionable. It could open up more minutes again for Nicolo Melli, who played 32 minutes last game. He's 4K in a good spot against Houston. Potentially, I don't know. So if Kleber's out and Porzingis is out, I'm not sure who they would start at center. I mentioned last game that I didn't think Boban would play against the Jazz because they've been the highest frequency pick and roll team in the league. Houston's been one of they're in the bottom third of the league, but John Wall in particular, who's expected to play today, has averaged the 14th most pick and roll possessions per game. So not sure if they would run Boban out there or not. Obviously, if he started, he would be one of the best values on the slate. But if he doesn't start, I wouldn't be looking there. So, assuming this team's fully healthy, I don't really have any interest outside of Luka or any priorities outside of Luka, I should say. If Porzingis is out, it opens up a little bit for guys like Richardson, potentially for Maxi Kleber or Nicolo Melli. But overall, I think it's mostly Luka one way or the other.
Okay. I would agree with that. Now, on Houston's side of the ball, John Wall is expected to play. Daniel House is out. Avery Bradley, who has been playing pretty considerable minutes, 33 last time out in that 3.263 total game, lost to the Phoenix Suns, but not exactly one of your better per minute fantasy producers this season or any year. So not sure how much we want to discuss that. The big thing here would be John Wall, Christian Wood, Kevin Porter Jr. Anybody stand out to you at the top of the Houston Rockets?
No, not really. I mean, Dallas has been one of the slower teams in the league. You can always look to Christian Wood or to Wall just for the upside. Like Wall's per minute production this year hasn't been as good as it would be for most players that had his usage rate and his assist percentage, but that kind of involvement in the offense still gives him a really high ceiling. Obviously, we don't know exactly how many minutes he'll play. I assume you're getting around 32 minutes for him. Avery Bradley's cheap enough where if you wanted to look to him, if he's in the starting lineup again, you could. But for one, I don't know if he'll be in the starting lineup again. For two, he's still just not a high usage guy. He's still not a very good fantasy producer. And John Wall coming back certainly isn't going to help that.
Jordan, you didn't know Mortal Kombat was a wait, what did you think it was? It is a video game. What are you talking about? Oh yeah, there's definitely. What's up?
It's a movie too.
Yeah, there's a Mortal Kombat remake coming out.
Okay, yeah, there's a movie, but what came out first, the video game or the first movie?
I have no idea.
Adam, which came out first? I always thought it was the video game.
Video game.
Right? Oh yeah, okay. So.
I mean, I don't know, but I think.
It's got it. I used to love that game, man. Tossing people down onto the spikes, watching their guts fly. Can't beat it when you're 8 years old, Do you have any other interest? What were you going to say?
I was going to say anything. I'm Wikipediaing Mortal Kombat.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Once you get that information, let me know.
I mean, so the video game came out in 1992. I'm almost positive the movie was after.
It's got to be. Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, I feel stupid even thinking about this. It's got to be.
I wouldn't have thought of it. 1995 film.
Okay. Just a fantastic film. Houston Rockets, aside from the guys we've hit on, do you have any other interest in this or in this game at all before we move on to the final three?
No, I'm good moving on.
All right. Let's talk about Charlotte and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Charlotte Hornets, no Gordon Hayward and Malik Monk. I made an off-color joke today that people weren't necessarily happy about on the strategy show, Adam.
That's surprising.
Yeah, we won't rehash that. I thought it was pretty funny. Most people can appreciate it. But he's out at least 4 weeks. They're 5.5-point favorites still. Does that not illustrate just how bad the Oklahoma City Thunder are? They're down LaMelo, they're down Gordon Hayward, and they're still 5.5-point favorites on the road.
Yeah, they've been really bad. They went from being like a bad NBA team who defended well to now being the least efficient defensive team in the league, also playing at a top 10 pace over the last month. They're just all around bad.
It is bad. And OKC's got a lot of injuries too. But we're looking at Terry Rozier. We're talking about Devontae Graham, PJ Washington, who's just been disastrous recently. He's probably going to get some attention on FanDuel. Miles Bridges is another one. You can kick this game off with the Hornets and tell me where you're going here. And if some of these prices are a little bit prohibitive to you or if they look okay.
Yeah, I think they look okay, and I think there's some differences between DraftKings and FanDuel. Terry Rozier, 8,400 on DraftKings, 7,400 on FanDuel. Obviously, a better play on FanDuel, like he's $1,000 less expensive. But I think he's a good option on either site, especially now that we've gotten more value opening up. I mentioned it that Oklahoma City has really struggled defensively, and they're playing at a fast pace. Rozier has a 29% usage rate without LaMelo or Hayward on the floor this year, and he's averaged about 36 minutes per game in the games he's played without LaMelo. So, I think very clear bumps for a variety of reasons here for him. Miles Bridges on DraftKings is $5K and also has small forward eligibility, which is nice. He's played the most minutes on the team without LaMelo or Hayward on the floor. He's averaged about 0.8 DraftKings points per minute. Started the last game, played about 30 minutes, but lost 6 minutes to garbage time. So I think you're potentially looking at 34 to 36 minutes from Bridges here at a cheap price tag. PJ Washington is somehow cheaper than Bridges on FanDuel, more expensive on DraftKings. I'm really interested to see how this plays out for Washington because on the one hand, he's been much, much better as a center than a power forward this year. And I think you're probably going to get fewer center minutes with Hayward and LaMelo and Malik Monk out, because my guess is that you get close to 48 minutes from Zeller and Biyombo, and you get PJ Washington maybe playing a couple more minutes than normal, but playing almost all of his minutes at the 4 where he's less productive. But the uptick in minutes and the potential uptick in usage rate without Hayward could, make him still a little bit better producer even at power forward. So, I think he's fine on DraftKings. I think he's clearly underpriced on FanDuel. Devontae Graham is another one that's interesting because I think you see more minutes for him with Monk and Hayward and Ball out. He's got about a 23% usage rate without Ball and Hayward on the floor. But one thing to keep in mind is that you're probably going to see his minutes staggered with Terry Rozier as well. So for 25 to 30% of Graham's minutes, he's going to have an even higher usage rate. He's got a 37% assist percentage when he's played without Rozier, Ball, or LaMelo this year. So, maybe a little bit overpriced, but still someone I think has a really high ceiling here. So there's a lot of guys you can get to from Charlotte. I think the most egregious pricing is Bridges at 5K on DraftKings. Looks like a very good value. And Washington at 5,200 on FanDuel.
GoldenEye, best N64 game ever?
Yeah, I didn't have an N64, but that's definitely one that I liked a lot.
There was this video of this dude with his son. The dad would have been a little older than me, and the game turns on. This was recent. This was like 2021, and the game turns on, and he loses his shit. Like
I think I saw that.
Oh, it was so great, man. He starts freaking out. It was the greatest thing ever. And his son's looking at him like he was a maniac. But that brought me back. I got to get together with some people and get some, four player N64 faculty type games going for sure. What are you doing with the Thunder now that we've got no Beasley, no Roby, no Lou Dort? Of course, Horford and SGA going to be out for a while. Horford not playing at all. And you got a lot of players out now, but guys like Pokusevski, Mikhailuk, Moses Brown, even Teo Maledon, I think we could agree that their prices are beginning to reflect what we've been getting from them. The minutes, you're starting to see more of that. The production has been up because of the minutes and because of the injuries. So where do they get to a point, or when do they get to a point where you're like, all right, I probably don't need to play them anymore because they're not great value anymore?
Yeah, I think the Thunder might be the team, or they're definitely one of the teams, in my opinion, that was hurt the most by the Indiana news as far as, my interest in their players, because earlier I had interest in pretty much the entire starting lineup. Now I think it's a lot more of like secondary options. Boguszewski is still interesting because he should get basically all of his minutes at the 4. He's been much more productive there this year. He's averaged between 0.9 and 1 fantasy points per minute at the 4, as opposed to about 0.75 fantasy points per minute at the 3. So I think he looks better. But again, you just have, all this other value that opened up. Teo Maledon, kind of the same thing. He's averaged close to a fantasy point per minute in his games without Gilgeous-Alexander and without Horford this year. He should play around 32 minutes if this game's competitive. But, now you have TJ McConnell at that price point. You have some other guards that are going to look really good. Svi Mikhailuk is, I think, one of the best values on FanDuel. He's 3,800, played 26 minutes last game, but lost about 6 minutes to garbage time. Played 23 minutes the game before that, lost an entire quarter to garbage time. I think if this game's close, you're getting 30 to 32 minutes from Svi. He's averaged a little over 0.8 fantasy points per minute since joining Oklahoma City. So I think very, very clearly one of the top values on FanDuel. He's okay on DraftKings, but, I lose some interest now that we've gotten better value. And the same can be said for Tony Bradley on DraftKings, who at $4,000, if, all the questionable guys on the slate had been in, there, I would have had some interest in Bradley getting 20 to 22 minutes. But now you take out the entire Indiana front court, you take out potentially Clint Capella, it's just a lot tougher to justify using a roster spot on 20 to 22 minutes of anyone, really.
I get people asking me all the time about finishing top in a tournament and how do I get the free month of Awesemo? It's like a $99 value. All you have to do is have the Awesemo avatar, right? So if you win, Jordan, it's top 3 in 5,000 or more field, right? Top 3. Can you throw the link in chat too? So if anyone wants to use that avatar, they can do it. Just use the Awesemo avatar. And if you take top 3 in any of those, you're already winning a decent amount of money, but you'll get a free month of Awesemo on top of that, because repping the Awesemo avatar is good for you and it's good for us. You have any other thoughts on Charlotte or OKC?
No.
Where would you rank this game among the other 9 games today?
I think it's a really weird game because like I have outside of the Indiana game, this might be the game where I have interest in the greatest number of players. But in terms of priorities, I don't know that there are any outside of maybe like Miles Bridges on DraftKings and maybe Rozier and Washington on FanDuel. So kind of a weird game because like there's 8 to 10 guys that I like and not very many that I really love in the context of the entire slate.
Okay. Then we'll move on.
Svi on FanDuel obviously is a priority. So
yeah, San Antonio and Denver. San Antonio Spurs, 6.5-point dogs to a Denver team that's playing quite well right now. DeJounte Murray was questionable throughout the day. He is going to play. So if we just use ownership as an example, and by the way, I mentioned the 9 for 9 promo, $9 get you 9 days of all of our baseball content, all of our tools built by the #1 ranked player. If you want more than that, we're not just doing that. You know, we're doing, we got a golf promo as well right now. I don't know. Jordan can bring it up on the screen. I forget what the promo is. God, I'm good at my fucking job, aren't I? I forget what the promo is. I don't know. It's up there. Dustin, thank you. Good through April 11th. Buy 1 month of golf, get the other month completely free. And then starting 9 for the baseball one. But if you want everything, including Fantasy Cruncher with the add-on, go to awesemo.com/join, get all of the tools for all of our sports across every single sport we have on all of these sites. I'll throw it over to you for the Spurs.
I'm done. Yeah, no, I mean, DeJounte Murray expected to play. They're not cheap. It's not a good matchup against Denver. There's a ton of plays I like on the slate. You know, obviously DeMar DeRozan, DeJounte Murray, these guys can have big fantasy games, but yeah, I mean, it's really, really tough to get to them, I think.
Tristan Thompson will be limited today. Bartons remains on a minute limit. Okay. If we get any news, we'll let you know. Stick around live before lock with Josh and Greg coming up next, taking you up till 7. Flip it over to the other side of this one. Waiting on Jamal Murray news. That's significant. And Paul Millsap has already been ruled out. Let's start with Nikola Jokic. It looks like he's going to be pulling decent ownership. One of the handful of players that is priced up considerably today. He hasn't really gone nuclear recently, Adam. Maybe this one against Jakob Poeltl and the Spurs will remedy those woes. What do you think about Jokic tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I like him a lot. I always do. And I think that the value that's opened up just obviously makes it easier to get to him, but it also just makes it so raw points are valuable as well. You know, you're going to have, like, there's so much value now, or there's a lot more value now that looks pretty good. It's just going to be easy to get Jokic into some lineups. So, you know, I think he looks really good. We already talked about the potential ownership disparity between him and Karl Anthony Towns. But I think Jokic is the clear #1 center outside of, you know, the cheap point per dollar guys.
If Murray doesn't play, let's break this one down a little bit. If Murray sits, and he did sit yesterday, so of course we can pull up popcorn machine. We have a decent idea of what we're looking at here. They had that 15-point win against the Detroit Pistons. You had Will Barton, Monte Morris, Nikola Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., and Aaron Gordon start. Monte Morris only played 23 minutes. You saw Dozier play around 29 off the bench. Facundo Campazzo played 22 minutes. Do you see it being a similar rotation today? Do you think the blowout when they were up by 28 points in the third quarter had an impact on that as well? And maybe we'd see more for someone like Morris. What do you think here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you probably would get like 28 minutes or so from Morris. I think, you know, maybe he lost about 5 minutes at the end of that game. I think he probably closes. But, you know, he is at risk of losing minutes to Campazzo or to Dozier, depending how the game goes. But, you know, I think that there's going to be enough value on this slate that I'm not saving roster spots for Monte Morris. But obviously, if Murray's ruled out, you're going to want to late swap and get to, you know, to some Morris.
Someone just said RIP DMX. I don't know if that's true, but that's fucked if he did.
Yeah.
I grew up on DMX, man. Like, I'm assuming you did too.
Yeah. I also made it through my 1 semester of law school on DMX.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember being 16 years old. Oh, now they're just making this up. I don't know. I hope not. I don't know. I remember being in my car, Honda Prelude SI, 92 Prelude SI, sick leather seats. I bought it for like $4,000. And I had the two 12-inch subs in the back, driving around the suburbs, bumping DMX, thinking I was cool. Man, you look back on it, it's cringy as all hell. But I love this music, man. I was just listening to it the other day, and I know you were too.
Yeah.
Anybody
Yeah,
else?
I listen to it a decent amount still.
Yeah, so do I. He's good. He was so good. I hope that's wrong and it's just like fake news. But it's not exactly like he's in good shape anyway.
Right,
so.
exactly.
Yeah, like I would assuming that he's not going to live. What are you doing with the rest of Denver? If nothing, we can move on to Utah and Portland or Phoenix, which I would imagine you're not doing much with that one either.
Yeah, not much else for Denver. It's another team where like early in the day, I could see getting to some Barton or Gordon or Porter, but I think they all just kind of drop off as we've gotten better plays.
Okay. Well, then we have about 7 minutes to go here. Man, we're impressive today. Putting in that work, making good time. Utah and Phoenix, the Utah Jazz are 2-point favorites. It's funny. I have headlines that Jordan throws up on the screen for all of these games with injury news and all of that stuff. There's just nothing for either the Jazz or Phoenix. So you're not pulling significant value anywhere here. You're not getting a good matchup for either team. They're both very good teams. This is going to be a fun game to watch. And when I get back from hockey tonight, championship game 3, going to make it happen. I'm going to put this game on and watch it. But I don't imagine I'll have anyone from either side of this game, at least not with any significant frequency.
Roller hockey, right?
What?
Roller hockey, right? Not ice hockey?
No, I play field hockey. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure you weren't sounding more masculine than you are.
Well, I've always played both roller hockey and ice hockey. But
Okay.
see, the problem is you get older, the only rink time you can get is like 11 o'clock at night for ice hockey. And I'm not doing that. I got to drive 50 minutes to get there. That's not happening.
Yeah. Plus, the kid, all that.
Plus what?
Now you have the kid and everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It would just wouldn't be happening.
Yeah. So, I mean, it should be a great NBA game. Not a super appealing fantasy game. Two good defensive teams. I started to put Rudy Gobert in the deep dive today and then kind of just erased it and was like, I have nothing to say other than Rudy Gobert scores a lot of fantasy points per minute. And this should be a competitive game where he gets a couple of extra minutes. But like at the center position, he still doesn't really stand out as a top option, I don't think. I do think, there is some upside. Like if you end up on kind of a different build than most people are going to, because people are going to go to Jokic, they're going to go to Towns, they're going to pay down, to Carter or to Goga. If you go with a little bit different build, Gobert has a pretty nice ceiling here, but I think from like an optimal standpoint, it's going to be pretty tough to get there. I don't think anything else from Utah really looks that good. Obviously Donovan Mitchell has a really high ceiling, but there's other guards that look better in that price range, I think. Same goes for Conley. On the Phoenix side, I don't really see a lot. Devin Booker is priced up a ton on DraftKings, up to 9,300. Paul's priced up to 8,500. I don't know who DraftKings thought Phoenix was playing, but I don't think it was Utah.
All right. Lesson to me, don't take news from chat. Not that I was buying into it, but definitely for a second got a little bit concerned there. I don't know. Life support usually doesn't signal a fantastic return to health.
Yeah.
So Phoenix side, talking about Booker, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, all of these guys, where there's not much on Utah. I know there's not much on Phoenix either. Do we look towards anyone here? Maybe a strong contrarian option that could put up a big game in what should be a competitive spot. Only a 227 total. I'm going to just ask you to unturn every stone here if need be, or otherwise we can take some questions, whatever you want to do. But maybe Phoenix has a couple spots you're looking to get to.
Yeah, I think Phoenix is less appealing than Utah. I don't think Utah's very appealing either. But if I had to look to one side, I think I'm more interested in the Utah side, because something we talk about a lot is that Utah's involved in so many blowouts that it knocks their average playing time down. And, you're getting like 30 and a half minutes from Gobert, whereas in competitive games, he plays like 33, 34. Mitchell will play 35 or 36 in a competitive game. So I think Utah is a little bit underpriced as a result of just, their average playing time this season. But in the context of the slate where you're comparing, are they as underpriced as other plays? I don't think they really stand out. The Phoenix side, particularly on DraftKings, I think they're overpriced individually. And then in the context of the slate, they're just even more overpriced. On FanDuel, the pricing is a little bit better, where like you have a $7,600 Chris Paul, for example, but still nothing that stands out there.
9 up, 9 down, making things happen here. If you guys haven't done so yet, OddsShopper.awesemo.com is totally free. There's no membership you got to pay, no subscription, just odds from every book that you can bet on to get the best odds possible out there. Shop around, because that's the way to consistently win in betting sports. Find the spots where the odds are the best, where you can get that edge. Take advantage of stuff like that. Set watch lists, set notifications for when odds move the way you're looking for. Make sure to track all of your bets so you know what you're doing and you're not being careless or reckless with your bankroll management. I have a long history of doing that. I know, Adam, you as well, back in the day. Bankroll management was always something that is a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, back in the day is in like last week.
Yeah, those online slots, man. That's something. I'll be just crushing sports betting, and then I go, all right, I'll just throw a little bit of these profits into triple diamonds, and then I chase and I chase. I just stop. I actually emailed them and asked if they could self-exclude me just from the casino. So they said no. But fact remains, all of that stuff at OddsShopper is free. And if you're going to sign up on some of these books, like maybe you're in Illinois and these other states where it's becoming legal right now, take the opportunity to click on that link, get that free $500 bet or the plus 100,000 odds down to even money with a $200 max bet. There's so many different ways that when you go onto the site, you put $100 in, you immediately are getting like $300, $200 just because they're going to give you one of these wild free bets. You double, triple, quadruple your bankroll like that. But you got to sign up, getting those offers, and we got that. But it's all free there, 100% free. You can shop every player props. Just type somebody's name in, and boom, all of their props pop up as well. It's a great place if you're a sports bettor, if you're just getting into it, and you want to supplement your DFS play with sports betting and take that knowledge, that research that you use every day for DFS, and use it more for the sports betting side as well. There's so many different ways to do it. Anyway, appreciate you guys hanging out as always. It's been a fun one. We'll be back with you once again tomorrow, same time, right here on the Deeper Dive. Stick around. Engleman, Ehrenberg, live before lock, coming up next. Later, boys.
How is it going?
Goga season, baby.
Better believe it. I feel like it turned into Goga season at this exact same time last year.
I have no memory of last year.
Like around this time of the season, not the exact same date.
Sure.
There was no basketball this time last year.
Right. You good over there, Jordan? Seems it. Oh boy. Give me 30 seconds if you can. Okay, I'm good. Finally. And we are live. Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock. It is Wednesday, April 7th. We've got a heck of an 8-game slate on our hands. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Greg Ehrenberg, and we are here to break it all down, all the way up until 7 p.m. But first, let's start right here. Greg, how are you?
Pretty excited because I was on the right side of the Pacers news earlier in the day. Like, I just assumed none of those guys were playing, so I didn't have to change anything. This would have been a disastrous evening if those guys all ended up playing and I had to change everything. But since I was on the right side of it, like, I've had a pretty relaxed evening. I haven't had to change anything going up to the show.
Yeah, no real issues for me either. I wasn't well, if I'm being perfectly honest, I thought Malcolm Brogdon was going to play. Obviously didn't think Turner was going to play. And based on the way that I saw the line, I didn't really think that Sabonis was going to play either. But either way, all of those guys are out. And I think that's probably where we should start. But before we do that, guys, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. You know that good stuff. That helps us out a ton. I got to ask for it. Lofty did a
passable job in the hour before us. I will be here to carry the mantle at least a little bit more. And I will let you know at least, we'll say sometime in the middle of this show, how you can sign up and get an MLB Awesemo Pass, a PGA Awesemo Pass, all that good stuff, because Masters kicking off tomorrow. And if you're not playing, well, you've wasted your time already. You should be getting into PGA contests right now. It's the most fun you're going to find. Sweating the Masters, oh, it's going to be a good time. I can't wait. I don't know what it's like to sweat a PGA golf lineup because I'm usually just terrible at it, but maybe this week will be my week. We shall see. How much Goga is too much Goga?
Well, so it's going to be different on FanDuel and DraftKings, right? Because on FanDuel, we can only roster one center. And by the way, I'm only playing on DraftKings tonight, but I did make a build on FanDuel today just for the purposes of the show. At this point in the season, I found it to be very difficult to play baseball and play NBA on both sites. So usually nights tonight, I've been picking FanDuel or DraftKings to play for NBA. Tonight, I'm playing on DraftKings. So I have Goga in all my DraftKings lineups. I'm assuming he starts. He's the flat man at 3,000. I have no issue with that. FanDuel is a little bit different of a situation just because he is $900 more expensive than he is on DraftKings. And then also there are high-priced options like Valanciunas, I think, is in a good spot. Karl Anthony Towns, Nikola Jokic. So not quite an all-in play for me on FanDuel if I was playing lineups there, but DraftKings, he's in 100% of my lineups.
You are absolutely correct in that outcome. Would that change for you at all? And I assume the answer is yes, if we find out that like Jakar Sampson is starting at the 5.
Yeah, because then I would lower Goga's minutes, which, by the way, this is something that we've seen happen before. We've seen games where Sabonis and Turner have both been out, and Sampson ended up starting at center over Goga. That didn't mean that Goga wasn't a viable play on those slates. Right. I'm trying to bring back how long, that might have even been 2 years ago that it happened, but we've seen that before where I assumed Goga was going to play. He was in all my lineups. Sampson ended up starting. I had to change a bunch of stuff. Like Goga would still likely be my highest owned player. It just wouldn't quite be 100% on DraftKings.
I agree. I mean, they're going to have to play 48 minutes at center because they don't really have any other even guys approximating being a center on this team. Jakar Sampson isn't one of those guys, but he is going to at least fill in a pinch. I'm going to have a lot of him on FanDuel as well. I don't really see a way around it. Although it is a very different play on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings, as you mentioned, to start it off. What else are you looking at from the Pacers?
All right. By the way, Brandon Ingram's out. So I know everybody freaks out in the chat when we don't immediately bring up the news. Just going to put out Brandon Ingram's out. We'll walk through the Pacers news. Then we'll hit on the Pelican situation after that. But yeah, so another thing, the prices on the Pacers guys drastically different on DraftKings than FanDuel, and it creates a much different situation. So somebody like Jeremy Lamb is also almost min price on DraftKings. He's 3,400. TJ McConnell is 5,100. Karis LeVert is 7,100, so almost $1,000 cheaper than he is on FanDuel. And all of those guys are really strong plays. And now I know the next question is going to be, this is something we're going to see a lot. How many Pacers is too many Pacers to play in cash? On DraftKings, I think you could reasonably play 5 Pacers in cash games, and I would not have an issue with that.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty reasonable take. To not get to a lot of Pacers at this point would be honestly pretty difficult, with Goga being the clear star, LeVert, McConnell, McDermott, Lamb, Justin Holiday. I didn't even say Jakar Sampson, and he is like a truly viable depending on how this breaks out. Jeremy Lamb for 4,100 on FanDuel, I'm a little bit less enamored with. But I don't expect him to get a ton of steals again today. We'll see how that shakes out. But 3,400 on DraftKings, it doesn't really matter all that much. Indiana, in a matchup against Minnesota, it really doesn't get much better. This should be a great spot. So cue the 124-84 Minnesota victory here just to ruin everybody.
One thing before we move on to the Ingram thing, what did you do with McConnell's minutes? Because I am banging my head against the wall trying to figure this out. Because in theory, he should start at point guard, or even if he comes off the bench, he should just play a bunch of minutes and crush. But somehow last game with everybody out, he ended up playing less minutes than he played 2 games. If he played less minutes than he's been playing recently, he only played 24 and a half minutes last game. I understand part of that was a result of the score. The Pacers did get it closer, but they ended up losing the game by 16 points. But I'm really struggling with TJ McConnell's minutes, because if I give him, 32, 33 minutes, he becomes one of the best plays on both FanDuel and DraftKings. But after only playing 24 and a half minutes yesterday, I have a lot of uncertainty there.
I gave him 28. I think I could get him to 30 and it wouldn't be too crazy to me. But I don't expect him to start. I expect him to start Edmund Sumner again. I expect Edmund Sumner to play the first 3 rotations like normal and then not play in the fourth quarter if the game is competitive. And then at that point, I think TJ would take over. So something in that 28 to 30 seems most reasonable. And if the game gets out of hand, he could be the one, grabbing a shorter amount of rotation. But yeah, I went to 28. I don't love it. Like, I would be more likely to go to 30 than 26. That's for sure. At this point, at 28, to me, he's still probably like the second best play I can find on FanDuel, just because Caris LeVert is 8,500 there and not 7,100 like he is on DraftKings.
I gave him 27 minutes, and he's one of my highest. He's one of my most rostered players on DraftKings, and I think he has the potential to go way above that number.
I think that's a very reasonable stance, and I hate rostering him, if I'm being perfectly honest. Like, it's not fun. I was basically neutral to the field yesterday. That experience was absolutely terrible. I would prefer to never have to do that again, but I get the sense that I'm probably going to be doing that again.
Yeah, I was on a lot of the right things yesterday, but I had either TJ McConnell and Miles Turner in almost every single lineup, one or the other yesterday. And like, Miles Turner was playing really well. He scores like 22 fantasy points in the first half, then gets injured. TJ McConnell, just the minutes weren't there. So I look at that as like, I guess I'm right. And then I look at it again. It's like, well, I have to roster a lot of the same guys on this slate. So that's great.
Yeah, I had 50% Miles Turner. So that one kicked me square in the balls. At that point, then I was locked out to getting to more Jokic when the Murray news happened. So then I was redistributing. I ended up on a lot of Giannis, which I immediately had to fix because he got ruled out. The trickle down effect of everything that happened yesterday once Turner got hurt was like really, really just directly focused on everything that I was trying to do. And I was trying to be good. I was like relatively clear headed. I was paying attention. I was checking all my alerts. Like, I did everything that I was supposed to yesterday because FanDuel went back up to that 100K payout and it didn't matter at all. I still lost.
You know, it's funny from a mental point of view. Like, you cannot convince me when things are going wrong at a certain point in DFS. Like, you cannot convince me that the Giannis getting scratched was not correlated to the Miles Turner injury yesterday, because it does have this weird way of feeling like when one thing goes wrong, it's like, well, 4 more things are about to go wrong.
Oh, I think it was correlated just simply to my Miles Turner exposure. Like, I think that since I think that I am running this simulation, but I don't get to control it, I think the things that I did dictated the rest of the events for the day, which was not great.
There you go. It's your fault that Giannis didn't end up playing, which also sucked for FanDuel purposes, just because there was nobody else to swap to once he got ruled out. Like, it was like Draymond Green and Bobby Portis just leaving thousands of dollars in salary on the table.
Yeah. I thought getting to a lot of Drew Holiday was going to be a good idea. It wasn't. So there's that. Let's go to New Orleans now, where we're not going to be having Brandon Ingram tonight. Lonzo Ball fell face first into a bunch of stocks yesterday and turned that into a really good performance. We've got Zion, who's priced pretty much appropriately. Is it a Najin Marshall day? How many minutes do you expect Isaiah Thomas to get? Is he even functionally rosterable? Played 25 minutes yesterday, so who the hell knows? What are you doing with the Pels now?
Yeah, I'm just pulling up right now the numbers with just Ingram off the court this year. And by the way, if Isaiah Thomas is going to keep playing that many minutes, it's kind of an issue for the production of other guys, because I think he only has one mode on the court, and that's just shoot. Like, I was looking at his usage rates for the last couple of years when he's actually played, and he's still, even as a guy who's been one of the least efficient guards in the NBA, defense has been terrible. When he's on the court, he still has like a 30% usage rate on teams. So that is a little bit of a concern going forward here. And he did have a 27% usage rate yesterday, also in those 25 minutes. So pulling up the numbers here, we have Zion's usage rate 32.8% when Ingram's off the court. Lonzo Ball 25.1% usage rate. Really strong points per minute fantasy production, though, like ridiculously strong without Ingram.
Yeah.
So that is something that I'm going to definitely have to consider. Actually, points per minute, Lonzo Ball scores more fantasy points than Zion when Ingram is off the court this year. Like, I don't buy that's going to be the case tonight, but at the very least, it's going to make me get exposure to Lonzo.
Yeah, I am bumping him a little bit now with Ingram out. The problem really is that I don't love the price on Lonzo, at least not today. He is 7,800 on FanDuel, 7,700 on FanDuel. I think he looks good, but I really do think you're threading a bit of a difficult needle there. I don't mind ever really playing guys in this situation where the guy is out, he's going to play 34 minutes, he gets the rate bump. That's fine, but he is at the upper bound of what I like for his price tag. I would prefer to get to Zion. I actually don't really care for all that much from the Pelicans outside of, like, Marshall looks like a decent value play for 3,900 on DK. He's 4,500 on FanDuel, so I'm good there. I don't think they're really opening up all that much.
No, it's just going to be Zion for me, more on DraftKings at 9,000. I mean, there's enough value where I think that there's just a lot of guys I need to pay up for. So it's not like 9,000 is a crazy value for Zion, but it looks like I'm going to have him projected around 47 fantasy points. And that's going to have me getting to him at that price point.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I do need. What did you have the Zion usage rate at with Ingram off the floor?
32.8%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm ready to run a crunch. I think that I've got everything like sort of where I wanted to. Oh, by the way, I guess I didn't ask. How many minutes did you give to Goga?
Let me go back to the Pacers. By the way, also, I'm assuming that Goga starts.
Yes.
And I think I did 26 to him and 22 to Sampson. Okay. I'm just pulling that up to be sure, though.
Along the top to Sampson.
And there is a chance they overlap minutes also. I didn't make that to be the case. But yeah, I did 26 Goga, 22 Sampson.
Yeah, I don't think it would be crazy at all to see Jakar Sampson and Goga on the floor at the exact same time. I mean, they don't really have any fours, though. So like that's why I think that's possible. The minutes for Jakar Sampson honestly scare me a little bit because he could play 30 today and he could play 20 as just the straight backup 5. And I think that both of those outcomes are completely viable.
Yeah, so the active big men for them, Batadze and Jakar Sampson. Then they have O'Shea Brissett, who I don't think is going to play minutes, or if not significant amount of minutes. And they have Keelan Martin, who could play front court minutes. But I mean, other than that, like they have a bunch of just crappy like replacement level guards on this team, and they just have no depth at forward at all.
Does this make you like anything from Minnesota more?
Minnesota. It's an interesting question. I didn't think of it that way, although I usually do consider that more, although less so at this point of the year, just because so much value opens up every slate that just every slate ends up becoming stars and scrubs. Yeah. Like I was getting to Karl Anthony Towns before, and I'm still going to get to Karl Anthony Towns. But like these other guys, Edwards, Russell, Rubio, now that they have all these guards active, I just think it's going to be really hard to predict the usage in minutes on a day-to-day basis. But I liked Cat before, and I still have exposure to Cat.
Okay. I'm trying to think of anybody else that we need to touch on. You and I will have different opinions on Svi for today because Svi on DraftKings is not nearly the same thing as Svi on FanDuel. Okay, let's go to Boston because that's one where I felt like I was on at least I don't want to say on an island because that wouldn't be true. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are certainly picking up ownership. But how are you feeling about Boston now without Kemba Walker? Obviously, no Evan Fournier either. Tristan Thompson coming back. What are your thoughts on Brown? What are your thoughts on Tatum? And how do you think Tristan Thompson being back affects Robert Williams' minutes, if at all?
So I'm not totally sure, but I'm also not overly concerned about it because there's so many good center plays now at this point. Yeah. Like I think that Robert Williams likely takes a step back a couple of minutes, and Tristan Thompson's minutes just come from, guys like Mo Wagner and Luke Cornett, who were soaking up minutes and not really doing anything. Robert Williams has played so well for them that I can't imagine they just marginalize him like significantly. He could lose a couple of minutes, but the bigger point to me here with him is that there are so many other center plays on the slate that I'm just not really sweating it because it's like I'm going to be getting to Goga at center. I'm going to be paying up for Jokic. I'm going to be paying up for Towns. And it's just not a guy that's going to be important to me. So I don't have exposure to him right now. And, maybe there's potential for him to have a big game, but there's just other centers that I have to prioritize that I'm not rostering Robert Williams.
That works for me. Brown and Tatum thoughts?
So I had, until I just updated my lineups for the Zion news, I had a chunk of Jaylen Brown exposure, not quite as much as the field because he is, at last look, I think he was 23% owned on DraftKings, which I thought was a little high, but he was still, to me, somebody who was a viable play in tournaments just because there were so many guys out for Boston. But now that I have Zion as an option for about $1,100 more expensive on DK, and I just got him into some lineups, that lowered my exposure to Jaylen Brown to the point where I only have him around 10% right now. And it's just a concern with the pace of play. Like, I don't know how legitimate his ceiling is when there's a game that's probably going to have barely more than 200 total points scored.
Clint Capella and Danilo Gallinari both out for the Hawks.
Wasn't Gallo ruled active like a few hours ago?
That could have been a couple days ago. I don't remember anymore. I took Capella out at the turn of the news and split some minutes between Onyeka Okongwu and Nathan Knight. I did not, though, take out Danilo Gallinari. So let's talk a little bit about the trickle-down effect for what's happening here for Atlanta. Nathan Knight and Onyeka Okongwu are like 3,100 and 3K on DraftKings. I assume you're taking Goga before either one of those guys, no matter which one of them starts.
So actually, I just want to, before I forget this, something I'm doing, I'm bumping up Valanciunas right now.
I did the exact same thing, but that was like an hour ago.
So my initial reaction to this news is like, I'm just thinking about that front court, and I didn't want to change stuff on the Hawks without forgetting about Valanciunas, because I just don't know who slows him down now.
Was Josh Okogie questionable earlier? If he wasn't, he is now for personal reasons. So not that it matters. They've got 27 dudes that all suck that can play minutes at the 2, 3, 4. So it's new. He's questionable.
Yeah, I don't remember him being on the injury report before, but also not something that's going to be significant to me at all.
Nope, not at all. I saw it pop up to the beat writers list and tried to talk that through in my own head. So Solomon Hill is clearly going to play 30 minutes or more today at this point. Do you think that the Hawks play 3 centers? Does Bruno Fernando also get time with Onyeka Okongwu and Nathan Knight?
Yeah, probably. And I don't think any of the 3 of them are likely to play massive minutes. I think Okongwu probably has the highest ceiling in terms of playing time. But I mean, none of these guys have been particularly impressive this year. So I just think they're going to, and also I think all of them are potentially to get in foul trouble being guarded by having to guard Valanciunas. Yeah. So I don't think I'm going to get exposure to any of those guys just looking at the center rotation right now. The guys that I am going to be getting exposure to now, Trae Young and Bogdan Bogdanovic.
By the way, John Wall is available to play. I haven't pulled up any rates or anything yet. I'm still trying to work my way through who's going to be getting these additional minutes for Atlanta. It probably doesn't matter how many minutes I throw at Solomon Hill. He's going to end up being Solomon Hill when we get to the close of this slate. And being Solomon Hill is rarely a good thing for DFS plays on an 8-game slate. So you mentioned Trae Young and you mentioned Bogdan Bogdanovic. Is there anything else you're seeing from Atlanta? Anywhere else you want to go? Do they become like immense plays for you, or is that just you're going to be getting them a little bit more than you were before?
Well, Bogdan was not somebody I was getting to really at all before. He's 6,500 on DraftKings. I thought that was a really reasonable price tag, but I mean, obviously early in the day, I assumed Gallinari was playing because he was either upgraded to probable or they say he was available early. I think Gallo even said himself that he was going to play today, which that was a lie.
Yeah, thanks, Gallo.
Yeah, so Bogdan was somebody who I wasn't getting to at all. Now he's going to be in my player pool. And Trae Young is somewhat of a priority as a pay-up option because I figure he's going to have to do almost everything for them on offense other than Bogdan chipping in for them to stay competitive in this game.
Oh, yeah. Chris Dunn's still out. I'm really hoping to see him. Hold on. So Trae Young, Bogdanovic, Herder, Lou Will, Solomon Hill, Tony Snell, Nathan Knight. Okay, Mays, Okongwu, Goodwin, Fernandez. They got 11 active. Doesn't matter now.
Yeah.
I was starting to work my way through this and I was like, good God, like that's a lot of red outs that I'm looking at, but ultimately it's not going to matter all that much.
No, and Chris Dunn it's been like almost 2 years since Chris Dunn's played in an NBA game.
It bums me out so much, man. I really wanted to see him playing for this team, get some shooting around him, have him guard the best guard on the team so that Trae Young can get hidden a little bit. And yet he has not existed at all. I don't know who to give these extra stupid minutes to for this team. The whole damn team's a bunch of point guards. Lou Will, Skylar Mays, Brandon Goodwin, Trae Young. It's just point guards and centers, man. Point guards and centers. Every one of their wings is out. Hunter, we'll call Collins a 4 for this sake of argument. Gallo out. Reddish out. I mean, it's just the only other guys that they have to play on the wing are garbage like Tony Snell and Solomon Hill.
Which is also why I think that Valanciunas could, I won't say easily, but if he pulls down like 20, 22 rebounds, I would not be in the least bit surprised.
Nor should you be. I'm running out of options to give minutes here. I think Bogdan Bogdanovic might actually have to play 34, 36 minutes here.
Yeah, I'm getting exposure to him right now. I have him playing 34 minutes, and that's giving him right around 35 DraftKings points at a 6,500 price tag. That'll definitely have him in my player pool.
Yeah, I believe it. I think I'm feeling pretty comfortable here now with the rest of this. Who do we need to slide to next? So anybody that you're getting a ton of that you want to transition the conversation to before we get into some plugs and such?
Let me check my exposure, which is about to change because of the Hawks news. But Wendell Carter Jr.
Okay. Yeah, go for it. I'm really intrigued by him on DraftKings. He's a little less interesting to me on FanDuel, so this is actually perfect for us.
Yeah, I agree with that also, what you said about him being less appealing on FanDuel, but DraftKings we could roster 2 centers, also only a 6,000 price tag. For one, I'm still a believer in Wendell Carter Jr. Like we haven't seen him get the minutes consistently when he was with Chicago, but now Orlando's like, hey, you know what? All our guys are out. Let's play Wendell Carter Jr. It's like, oh my God, wait, Wendell Carter Jr. is good.
I'm very much with you, by the way, on that take.
Yeah, Wendell Carter Jr. over 40 DraftKings points 3 games in a row. He's played over 30 minutes 3 games in a row. So I have to assume he plays over 30 minutes again. And given the points per minute production we've seen from him in Orlando, and there's so many guys out for this team, like that has me expecting him to score near 40 DraftKings points. So I think he is one of the stronger plays on the slate.
Yeah, I think him going to that team and getting center run under Steve Clifford is going to be the one, like, one of the greatest things that could actually happen to him. Steve Clifford has built incredible defenses around teams that shouldn't have incredible defenses. To get him and to get him to buy in is going to be very interesting for the rest of his career. Kenrich Williams will start for the Thunder. Darius Miller ruled out. So Oklahoma City should have 9 active bodies for today.
I don't even want to deal with that stupid team again. And
the whole damn team is viable. I love like basically everybody. Moses Brown, Pogaszewski, Svi, Horde, I guess it has to be in play at least a little bit. Kenrich Williams, Teo Maladon, Ty Jerome. Like depending on the site, you got to be playing some of these guys, and that sucks.
It is different on DraftKings because these guys are priced up. Like I don't have to consider Svi on DraftKings at an elevated price point. But yeah, if I was playing on FanDuel, Svi would be one of my most rostered shooting guards if I was playing on FanDuel, which based on your quick facial reaction there, I assume is potentially the case for you.
So I agree with it, but I think that he's going to show up dramatically over-owned, and I will be fading him like I did the last time. And that did not work out for me, but it's because he fell into stocks again. I was very happy with the fade otherwise. I'll still have him, but we're going to be projecting him for like 50% ownership. I don't think that's ultra necessary today.
Yeah, if he's 50%, then that is a little rich.
Anything else you want to do with this Oklahoma City team now that we know that they only do have 9 active bodies?
Let me pull up their rotation really quick. At least earlier, they weren't really popping up for me on DraftKings. Moses Brown is so difficult for me to figure out because he goes from looking like he's unguardable. It's like, oh my God, 20 points and 20 rebounds and a half for Moses Brown. And then it's like the next game, he just totally shits the bed. So if there weren't so many center plays, I would have him in my pool as a like really real boom or bust, like the most boom or bust center option you could possibly have. But the minutes have been down recently. The production's been down. So I'm not on Moses Brown on DraftKings. There's just other guys I'd rather get to.
When I inevitably get to Kenrich Williams, can you make it a point to come to my home and punch me in the face in the middle of the night? Because I think that I'm going to deserve it. That dude never works for me. It's awful.
Yeah, I mean, that's a long trip for me just to punch you in the face, but I mean, it seems fun enough.
I promise you it'll be incredibly rewarding for you. And honestly, it'll be pretty rewarding for me as well. Got to hit on a couple major things for the website itself. Talking schedule. We only got one coming up after us, but it is a biggie. NBA. Yeah, I'm already on NBA Live Before Lock. PGA Live Before Lock, 8 p.m. You're getting Ben Raza, you're getting Eric Lindquist, and you're getting the boss man, Alex Baker, breaking down everything for the Masters. This is the biggest one you're going to find, guys. If you're going to watch any Live Before Lock for PGA this year, this is absolutely the one you want to be a part of. Not to mention, Ben and I dropped our PGA contenders, our best bets, 3 apiece on both sides. Got to go check it out. It's up on the YouTube channel right now. I tweeted it out. So if you follow me, and you should follow Greg as well, and follow the producer, Jordan Klein, the man behind the virtual glass. He should also get himself a follow. Guys, go check out PGA Live Before Lock. We also got free content today. If you're looking to play this NBA slate, and if you're listening to me right now, I assume you are, NBA projections are free. NHL projections are free. The MLB Top Pitchers tool is free, and the PGA Pro Plays are also free. We've got one piece of content across all major sports, so you should certainly be checking it out. Where would you like to move next? I'm looking at this.
Bradley Beal was just ruled in, so that should be what we hit next. Yes, Bradley Beal is in.
Thank God. Oh, my God. I just assumed that he was just never, ever going to play again. What are your thoughts on Bradley Beal? I know that I think that he looks incredible on FanDuel at 8,300, but I'm curious where you're going to land at the 9,500 mark on DraftKings.
So I'm likely not going to have exposure to him at 9,500 unless he's literally just totally unowned. But like 9,500, there's much more appealing pay up options for me. Like right now, I'm getting to a decent amount of Trae Young with the Hawks news. Where I think this really impacts, though, is I was assuming Bradley Beal was going to be out earlier. Now that he's in, I'm going to have to dial back Westbrook a little bit, and that's going to mean that a bunch of pay up options are going to open up for me. I'm going to be spread pretty thin at the top end. Like I'm going to be concentrated on value, a lot of those Pacers cheap guys, and then I'm going to, it looks like, just be spraying a little bit with the expensive guys like Trae Young, Russell Westbrook, Karl Anthony Towns, mixing and matching those guys with Pacers value. I think that's what almost all my lineups are going to look like.
Welcome back, Bradley Beal. Given the amount of exposure that I'm expecting to have, I can only assume that he plays his first rotation and then finds an exercise bike for the rest of the night. Oh, God.
I'm pretty concerned about his workload after the long layoff.
Interesting. I'm not, because he's Bradley Beal and Scotty Brooks will likely play him 40 minutes today.
So let's see. How long has it been since he's played now?
By the way, super chat from Zach Anderson. Do you like Miles Bridges for cash? No site given.
On DraftKings, yes, at 5,000. On FanDuel, I think he's just fairly priced.
Agreed.
And also we had a super chat from our friend Gene B. Kim, who absolutely been crushing DFS lately. He asked, is it just him, or do Jonas Valanciunas and Travis Kelce look alike? Yes, they look exactly alike. I think they've even hung out and posted about it on social media before, and I'm almost positive that they only became friends because they look alike and for no other reason.
That's kind of fun. By the way, at the rate that this is going, we're going to be working for GeneBKim.com soon. I mean, we are getting tagged in Gene's tweets on a daily basis. He is just in a complete print fest right now. Kudos to Gene.
The other thing that's funny about it too is because we DM a lot on Twitter, and he'll say like, "Oh, I need a home run from this guy tonight." I'll be like, "Don't worry, it'll happen." Then like 10 minutes later, the guy homers like without fail. It's the heater of all heaters.
Yeah, I don't even think it's a heater anymore. I just think he's the new best player in the world. We got to bring him on, boss. Whoever's listening in the that can do some hiring, we need to bring on Gene, because he's got the goods right now. Oh boy! So I'm looking at some of my highest ranked plays, and I think we need to talk at least a little bit about pay up options. Do you have a priority in like the Jokic, Luka, Towns, everybody else that's also a pay up option? Russell Westbrook. Do you have anybody that you are prioritizing?
It was Westbrook until Beal was rolled in. My lineups are rerunning right now. It looks like Zion is coming out a pretty heavy amount in my lineups at 9,000 on DraftKings. Okay. So all right, here we go. Now that it just finished updating, here are my 3 most rostered pay up options. Zion Williamson, Trae Young, and Luka Doncic. It would have been Westbrook had Beal been out, but now he is 4th for me.
Okay. I like it. I have no complaints with anything that you just said. And that's not because I wasn't listening. I'm not pulling a Laffy and an Adam. I actually do agree. And sometimes I can't add anything else. I agree with you. Ooh, I'm trying. Like, it's weird. This was a really difficult slate when I woke up. We didn't have any value. Things were looking kind of bleak. And now I think that the roster construction has become quite cut and dry. There are a couple games that you could basically just write off. There are value plays that are incredibly obvious that just need to get played. Do you see anything that's slipping through the cracks?
Let's see. I have not looked at updated ownership since we've had just new news items, as per usual in Live Before Lock. A new news item every, like 5 minutes or so arises. But let's see if we have an ownership update for all the latest news. We do not. So that's going to make it. So like, there's going to be guys who I say yes to, but it's going to be because I don't know what their actual ownership is. Yeah. So like, what is Bogdanovich? Like Bogdanovich, 10% owned. That's a little bit too low for me on DraftKings. If that is actually the case that he holds to 10%.
It won't be.
Yeah, it's not going to be. Let's see. Where is?
I mean, okay. So let's just do this. What are your thoughts on 42.8 Goga ownership if that stays? Because to me, that number should actually be 80.
I mean, I have Goga in 100% of my DraftKings lineups. I can't go 120%. Like if I could use Goga twice, I would. But yeah, he's in all my lineups, and that's not going to change at this point.
Yeah, we're on the, like, when I ran my sim right after that news came out, Goga was in 71% of optimals or something along those lines. Westbrook, Beal, Avdia, Hachimura, and Lem starting lineup for the Washington Wizards. Jake Layman starting for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Are you looking to get any Jake Layman in your life?
No. And by the way, also, I don't know if I mentioned it, but Robin Lopez is also going to play in addition to Bradley Beal. But
yes.
Here's what's weird to me about Jake. Like, they have all of these guards that presumably they want to give playing time to. Like, why even care about Jake Layman? I don't even think Layman sucks or anything. I think he's a capable shooter and floor spacer. But if you really need to get minutes to Edwards, Rubio, D'Angelo Russell, like, why are minutes going to Jake Layman also? That just makes it really hard, even more difficult for me to really project that backcourt there.
Like, see, if we don't have a Koji, like, yeah, is anybody really going to get enough minutes to matter, or are they just going to shotgun blast everybody to 16 minutes again like they normally do?
Yeah,
like, how many minutes would you have to project Jake Layman for you to be like, I might play some Jake Layman today?
Let's
48?
see. What are his rates for the year? By the way, it would have to be a lot, especially because there's so much value on the other side of that game, the Pacers. So Layman for the year is playing 15 minutes per game and averaging 10.71 DraftKings points. So if he played,
get it done.
If he played 30 minutes, if I gave him 30 minutes, I would still have 0% exposure to him.
Oh God, yeah, he is just not all that appealing. Okay, I got one guy that I'm curious your thoughts on. He doesn't have that great of a price on DraftKings, so I'm guessing you don't care all that much. Any Terry Rozier love today?
I have him in 5% of my lineup. So the Hornets are another team that's kind of hard to know what to make of because everybody's out for them, right? They have Gordon Hayward out now. They have LaMelo out. They have Malik Monk out, who I think that those are probably 3 of the 4 highest. If you just put those guys out on the court, like, those guys would take all of the shots if they could touch the ball for the Hornets. So Terry Rozier to me now is going to become somebody who I think has to do a little bit of everything for them. And then Devontae Graham too, for a smaller extent. Also, I have a little bit of exposure to Devontae Graham on DraftKings, but it's a really favorable matchup against the Thunder. And there are so many bodies out that Miles Bridges, the ownership's already there on him, but he's in my player pool. PJ Washington, really strong play on FanDuel, less so on DraftKings. But Rozier and Graham, there's so much usage up for grabs that it's hard for me to just totally avoid these guys.
Okay. Is there anybody that you see that at least we have mildly projected for high ownership that you don't agree with?
Let's see. I'm going to start with DraftKings. If Jaylen Brown stays 20% owned, that to me is too high on DraftKings. I have him projected, fairly decently, but like I said before, the total for that game is so low, and there are so many good value plays that have opened up now that I have Jaylen Brown in about 10% of my lineups. My lineups are setting up to be really strong stars and scrubs at this point. A lot of Pacers guys, a lot of pay up options. So Jaylen Brown to me a little bit overowned at 20% just for that reason. Tony Bradley picking up 17% ownership on DraftKings. That to me looks a little bit high. Also because, so like we talked about Goga being like ridiculously highly owned. He's in 43% of lineups. He is way more than 3x more likely to end up.
Maxi Kleber out.
Did they give an update on Porzingis with Kleber?
Porzingis will play.
Okay.
Oh, starting lineup for the Pacers: Sumner, LeVert, Justin Holiday, McDermott, Goga Bitadze.
Sweet. So. All right, cool. We don't have to worry about the potential Jakar Sampson starting. That would ruin everything for me at this point.
Correct.
So we'll talk about just to wrap up what I said in terms of guys that are overowned, like Tony Bradley being 17% compared to 42% Goga. Goga is significantly more likely to be in the optimal lineup than Bradley. And even though there's a big gap between those guys, like the gap is not nearly wide enough.
No, it's a massive gap. What do we make of this Maxi Kleber news? Is Nikola Melli now an interesting play on any site? Melli, by the way, has played a lot the past 2 days. Obviously, both of those games had no Porzingis. One of those games had no Maxi, but 32 and 28 minutes in what they have basically been running as a 7-man rotation, 8-man rotation. Not a lot.
And his production hasn't been great in those games, though.
Nor should it be. He stinks.
So as a starter, he made 2 starts, 30 minutes, 20.4 DraftKings points. Overall for the season, 12.2 minutes per game, 8.64 DraftKings points. So if this was a slate where we're really starved for value, I would just hold my nose and probably put Nicole Melli in, like 10% of lineups or something like that, and just say like, hey, I need to pay up for some of the stars. But we have so much value on the slate that there's a pretty significant opportunity cost to rostering Melli, in my opinion, because that means he probably comes at the expense of Pacers value in the lineups that he would be in.
Do you see anybody picking that is really becoming an interesting play because of Dallas? We've seen Jalen Brunson play 30 minutes the past 2 games. We saw Dwight Powell get 24 minutes, but that was with Porzingis out. Dorian Finney-Smith, I assume, is set to play 34, 36 minutes at the least. Clearly not a fantastic per minute guy, but even still, what are you seeing from Dallas now? Is there anything viable?
So more of a FanDuel play, but Porzingis at 16% ownership. If I was playing on FanDuel, I'd probably be a little bit above that number. And the other thing too is this news came out so late that I tend to think the ownership for Porzingis is probably going to be lower than what it's projected as, just because we see this all the time. If people have their lineups built earlier in the day and news comes out with somebody who's questionable, 20 minutes before lock, unless it's some crazy value or something like that, I just don't think people are going to be that willing to move on to Porzingis after he was questionable until 20 minutes before the slate started.
Does this make you like Luka by any chance anymore? I can't imagine Maxi's really changing the equation, but I guess I should ask the question.
No, I mean, Luka was already somebody who I was getting to at a fairly decent clip as a pay-up option, and that's going to be the same situation still.
Okay, we're on the same page there. Guys, hit that like button. We've got 20 more minutes to go until we get to lock. We're north of 600. We've got 3,000 people here. That's how important the NBA still is. We still have 3,000 concurrent, even though we've got baseball. Who needs baseball? It's boring. The NBA is where it's at. What'd you say?
I said I need baseball.
I do not need baseball whatsoever. We got 2 promos going on right now. I think you should get in on both of them. I understand if finances are tight, you're going to have to pick one. So pick the sport you prefer the most. We can start with MLB. Starting 9, STARTING, the number 9. You get 9 days of Awesemo Plus MLB for just $9. We're talking projections, ownership, top stacks, lineup builder, access to Slack. You cannot beat that. All of these tools made by the boss man himself, Alex Baker. You guys know him as Awesemo. But again, $9 for 9 days. This promotion is going away on the 9th, oddly enough. So if you don't get in now, you're going to be left without access to some MLB projections, and you should get in on it. But if PGA is more your bag, we've got the Masters coming up. BOGO right now. Buy 1 month, get 1 month free using the promo code Dustin. This is our Awesemo Plus golf package. Again, projections, ownership, top golfers, lineup builder. We've got unofficial golfer rankings now coming out from the boss man himself. That got posted today. It's good stuff right now. You'll also cross over to another major. This won't just be for the Masters. You get 2 months. That'll include the PGA Championship. And there are multiple other high-level PGA events coming up in the next month. You want to get in here. This code will only last until April 11th. So when the Masters ends on Sunday, you're out of luck. Get in there now. $29.95 will get you 2 months of Awesemo Plus golf. God, you can't beat either one of those promos. Get them both, guys. What are you waiting for? Just do it. All righty. Did anything else crazy happen in the time that I was giving that little soliloquy?
No, but I did think of something to ask you that I think is fairly significant that we have not talked about yet.
Hit me with it.
I am scared that I don't have very much exposure to Kyrie Irving today. I don't know what to expect from Kevin Durant in his first game back. I don't know how that's going to impact Kyrie Irving. I don't know if Durant is going to play. I don't assume he's going to play full minutes, but I don't know how much usage he's going to take out on the court when he has that long of a layoff. And even though I'm not expecting 34, 35 minutes from him or anything like that, I mean, there's a big difference if we get, say, 20 minutes from Durant versus 30 minutes for Durant as it pertains to Kyrie Irving. So how did you handle Kyrie with Harden out, but Durant returning?
That's a good question, actually. I haven't really gotten to a point where I've seen a crunch and seen results. He wasn't somebody that I was like super enamored with early, but at the same time, there was no value in order to get to him. Just looking at it right now, I'm going to prefer Luka Doncic to him, $100 cheaper. It's going to be different, like especially if they're going to be, well, Luka did have twice as much ownership, but I think that is actually warranted. I prefer Kyrie to Russ at this point now. Now that Bradley Beal is officially in, I think he's going to be a guy that I have in like the 15 to 20% range. Nothing too crazy. He's just going to be a part of this big crop of pay up options that I can just get to in random order because of the amount of value. To me, Luka is an actual priority. I think Nikola Jokic is an actual priority today, just in terms of like Jokic is a different kind of priority in that he just changes the entire construction if you're not using one of the value centers. But Luka is my preferred pay up option. I don't want to say Kyrie's just a guy because I think that undersells where I have him ranked out. But I don't think that he is going to be the guy that I'm getting well over the field on.
Yeah, I have, let's see, what is his, the ownership in the last, I mean, he was 13.4% on DraftKings in the last.
We got an update 2 minutes ago. I don't know if you saw it.
So I'm
Goga up to
then.
65% on DK, 43% on FanDuel.
Not high enough.
What do you think about 43% on FanDuel?
Actually, 43% on FanDuel, that seems more reasonable. The DraftKings one at 65%, as ridiculous as it sounds, it should be higher than 65%. 43 though, it's a little light to me. But I had him higher than that in the crunch I'd ran before. But he's not the same play on FanDuel that he is on DK.
When I ran my previous optimal crunch, I got Goga in 42% of 44% of optimals. So basically spot on the number. When you're good, you're good. I assume that I have a ton. I'm going to have to sort of nerf him at least a little bit if I want to try to get to any Jokic. The question then becomes, we need to sort of look at the center eligibility or ownership. We've got Jokic at 19 on FanDuel. Obviously Goga leading the charge at 43. And then Jonas Valanciunas is at 16%. So those three guys are making up, I don't know, 80% of the ownership. 43 plus 19 is 62, plus another 16 is 78. So 70% of center ownership projected to go to Goga Bitadze, Nikola Jokic, Jonas Valanciunas. Does that sound appealing to you if you're looking to get to Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, Jakob Poeltl, Okongwu, Moses Brown? Are you feeling at least a little interested in taking flyers on them in larger field GPPs?
Towns, yes, because the upside is so substantial for him. And for Towns, especially because his usage has been so high recently, like even with D'Lo back, even with Anthony Edwards taking a bunch of usage, just pulling up Cat right now. The other thing also is basically the entire front court out for the Pacers, but recent games for Towns, last game his usage was down a little bit, but still games for 33%, 37%. And overall over the last month, we are looking at a 30% usage rate for Karl Anthony Towns. So he's become such a focal point of the offense. And with everybody out for the Pacers, I think that he would be the contrarian option that makes most sense to me. And I'm getting to him on DraftKings.
I got to read this. I don't mean to troll here, but Solution Sports said, never seen a number one draft pick, in brackets, Morant, shoot less than 10 attempts in a game, 3 games in a row. Now, first of all, not a number one draft pick. So let's start there. There is a number one draft pick that immediately jumps out to my mind. I would not be shocked at all if Ben Simmons took less than 10 shots, 3 games in a row. He actually did get drafted in the number one spot. So maybe
Anthony Bennett.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's all games in a row for Anthony Bennett. But I mean, of guys that are playing, Ben Simmons would probably stand out to me in that sort of scenario. It wouldn't shock me at all if he had 3 straight games there, but also not a number one draft pick.
I think that's the key there. Also, if we're talking about Morant, we could talk about the Grizzlies for a second here too, because number one, like I said, I think that Valanciunas is in a much better spot now that he's going up against a totally depleted Hawks front court. But the Grizzlies are also dealing with a handful of injuries. They have, let me get the list of guys who are out for the Grizzlies right now, because it is a long one. And by the way, a team in the Grizzlies that I rarely like to get exposure to because their rotation is not fun to project. But it's Anthony Melton out. Jaren Jackson Jr. remains out. Brandon Clark is out. Justice Winslow is out. With all of these guys out, and like I said, I am going to be getting to Valanciunas at center. I also got to Kyle Anderson a little bit. Also, John Morant left last night's game early with a back injury. Was there anybody else that you got to from Memphis?
I'm not getting to much at all. Joe Val, John Morant, slow-mo. That's pretty much it. Maybe Dylan Brooks sneaks into a lineup, but I'm not getting to Allen or Bain or Concha or any of those guys. Joval stands out. On DK, Joval, Morant, and Kyle Anderson all look basically the same to me relative to salary. Those are the only three guys that I'd be really looking at.
Yeah, I like Valanciunas the most of the group right now, and then Kyle Anderson second. I'm a little worried about Morant after he left last night's game pretty hobbled, and at the time it looked like it was going to be a significant injury. Obviously not, because he's playing today, but I do think maybe they dial back his minutes a little bit just to be cautious.
I think that if he were even at all dinged up, he wouldn't be playing today. Like, there's no use in making John Morant play on a bum ankle unless he feels just like totally fine. That's my guess, at least. I don't think they would play him less. He's either playing all of it or not playing at all.
Yeah, I think they might give him a couple less minutes. It's also, I think the reason they would have him play anyway is, just because there's 20 games left in the season and they're right in the mix for a playoff spot. So I think that would be the motivation to push him here.
That's fair. All right. You seeing anything new? I'm seeing one interesting thing popping up in my crunch right now that I wasn't getting to as much as I thought I would. Any thoughts on Christian Wood? That's certainly a name I know we have not mentioned today.
Overall, I've been a little disappointed in Christian Wood for a couple of reasons. Number one, I have a bunch of exposure to him on my best ball team, so I'm acutely aware that his production has been a little bit down lately. But the other thing too is, like, it's not just that the minutes have been there, but the production just been underwhelming, and his price is still really expensive on FanDuel and DraftKings. Like, I'd feel differently if his price came down. But the last handful of games from now, 28 DraftKings points, 38, 41, 38, 40, 25, 27. I don't think he has all that much upside until his price starts to dip a little bit, because his price just remains, pretty expensive. It's not like we're getting him in the 7K range we had earlier in the season.
So what you're telling me is you're not getting Wood tonight?
No, I'm no Wood for me, Joshua.
Oh, I opened up the Zoom window. Jordan's not even sitting in the chair right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was right up his alley.
Yeah, that joke was basically just for Jordan so that I could look and see that he is laughing in his chair. And unfortunately, he's just not there. Leaves his job in the middle of his post. It's incredible. Great job, Jordan. I hope you can hear me at the very least.
Oh, you really had to throw him under the bus, didn't you?
I have to. Well, I've been there before. The amount of times that I've been producing a show and needed to go take a dump in the middle of it or something, it's happened countless. I made a joke for you. It doesn't matter now.
Yeah, it's past the point. We did get a super chat here. We could pivot from Soldope1234, a FanDuel question. He's asking Svi, Wood, Doug McDermott, or by the way, Christian Wood in both spots. So I just realized that we don't need to put Christian Wood in both of them. So he was asking Svi, Christian Wood, and Doug McDermott, or Lamb, Jakar Sampson, and Christian Wood. So we take Christian Wood out. So it is Svi and Doug McDermott, or Lamb and Jakar Sampson. For me, that is Svi and Doug McDermott.
Oh God, I just got really nervous that I left Brandon Ingram in my lineups because my crunch wasn't working. But for some reason, I get this problem where I don't know if it's because I use Google Drive to save all of my documents. I can't save over old crunches. Like, every once in a while, it just doesn't let me do that. It treats it like the crunch is open. So then I have to close every Excel workbook and then open them again. And I just ran a refresh, and Brandon Ingram was the issue. And it's like, if I just ran 1,300 lineups and Brandon Ingram is still in this crunch, like, I'm going to lose my mind. This is going to be a huge problem. But we're also good. So I didn't listen to the question, but I do see it here. So Svi and McBuckets, or Lamb and Sampson, that would be Svi and McBuckets, and not close for me.
Yeah, so we gave the same answer, and I disregard the Christian Wood aspect of him being in both sides.
As did I. All right, let's open up everything else we've got here. Josh, check your DMs. Hornets coach James Borrego hints at lineup changes. Nothing specific mentioned, or if this affects his starters. Would you think Cody Zeller did the starting lineup here?
Yeah, I don't know what else it would be, right? Like, what else could he possibly be alluding to? And also, when we see a lot of teams like this that are making lineup changes, it often ends up being something not significant. Like, I don't think I would get to Cody Zeller exposure even if he's starting.
I think it would be pretty difficult to get there, just given the amount of center information we have at this point. So I'm with you there. I don't think that would be something that I'm ultra worried about.
It's 4,400 on DraftKings also. It's not like it's earlier in the season. The first time he started earlier in the year, he was 3,400 off the top of my head.
DK Cash, Tatum or Randle?
Ideally, I would say don't play either of them in cash games. Let me see if there is a pivot in that same price point. So Randle is 9,900 and Tatum is 9,100. So there's a pretty big price gap between those guys. I'd rather roster Randle than Tatum if those are the only options, but I have more exposure to Zion at 9,000 than either of them. But I'm not leaving $900 on the table in a cash game. So it depends where else you could upgrade.
I have 79% Goga Bitadze on FanDuel right now. What are your thoughts?
I have 100% exposure to Goga Bitadze on DraftKings. So
yeah, well, I would have 100% on DraftKings too. That's a different.
Honestly,
question.
79% seems a little high to me. I wouldn't be that high if I was playing on FanDuel.
It is higher than I would like it to be as well. But if you gave it the stamp of approval, I wouldn't have brought it down as far as that I'm about to bring it down. But
I'm not saying you have to do anything like drastic and totally overhaul it, but.
And I'm not either. But it's not like 79 is more than I need. Like I can get to mid 60s and feel pretty darn good about it.
So the issue with 79% Bitadze to me is it just wouldn't leave enough exposure to guys like Jokic, Valanciunas, and Towns that I'd want to get to if I was playing on FanDuel.
I think I might be okay with that because if Josh Okogie ruled out officially, just for all you Minnesota Timberwolves fans that have been chomping at the bit to find out what's going on there. Is this set to, manual calculations? That makes more sense. It's like, why is nothing updating anytime I click on anything? But clearly the answer is because nothing was supposed to update. 6 minutes to go. We did get another super chat, I think. Okay, DK Cash, Tatum or Randle?
That was the one we just answered.
I asked that question out loud?
Yes, you did ask that question out loud.
It's one of those slates, guys. FanDuel, three-way. Again, Young, which could probably be like 10 different people, Pokusevski and PJ, or Rozier, McBuckets, and Wood.
All right. So Soldope is clearly contemplating Christian Wood on the slate because he has now asked us 3v3 questions in 4 different lineups, and he's Christian Wood in 3 of them. So,
and by the way, that's the last one. That's the last 3v3 I'm answering, no matter how many super chats come back in.
I'll answer them myself then. I don't really like Pokusevski for this slate, but I don't like Christian Wood either. So I'm going to lean towards the Trey Young, Pokusevski, and PJ Washington combination.
I prefer the Terry Rozier side, actually. I am quite high on Terry Rozier today. Unless we're about to find out that James Borrego is removing him from the starting lineup. Which at this rate wouldn't shock me at all. Wow, I'm actually getting to more Svi than I was expecting. A lot of Jaylen Brown, a lot of Anthony Edwards, more Justin Holiday than I want, and he kicked me square in the junk as well yesterday, which is just lovely. Christian Wood, Tatum, McDermott, Pokusevski. I'm okay with most of this exposure. I'm nervous about my lack of Jokic and Jovel, but at the same time, if I'm right on Goga, it won't matter.
Did you roster? This is coming off a question that Rabashu asked us in our premium chat. He asked if Okongwu or Goga Bitadze is the better GPP play when considering that Okongwu is projected for 2% ownership on FanDuel and Goga is projected for 42% ownership. The reason I want to bring this up is I did get to a very small amount of Okongwu on DraftKings just because he's at almost min price when I updated it. Not a significant amount. I have 15% of Okongwu right now. If he ends up starting, maybe I'll go a little bit higher on him. But did you end up rostering him at all on FanDuel?
No, I didn't. I don't think that they're even remotely close to the same play. There's so much ambiguity in the minutes, whereas I don't think that ambiguity exists for Goga Bitadze.
If you were playing on DraftKings, would you have any exposure to Okongwu at 3,100?
I would. And I would probably have a little bit of Nathan Knight as well, who I believe also has power forward eligibility.
Let's see. Nathan Knight. Power forward and center.
I thought I heard Adam say that on the deeper dive. 3 minutes to go, everybody. If you don't have your lineups in and your name is Josh Engleman, what are you waiting for? Oh, that's right. You're waiting to figure out if these lineups actually work. I think that I actually have to just let this rip as intended. I don't like it. It's really scaring me. But what are you going to do? Go Goga Bitadze today. That's the best thing that I can say.
Go Goga.
Go Goga. I like it. Go Goga. New theme. Wow. Knicks starting 5 just got released, and I'm not gonna lie, I forgot they were on the slate.
I assume there's nothing weird there that Tibbs did.
Well, we only posted the picture, and I can't figure out who anybody is based on a picture, so it doesn't really help me at all. I don't mean that in a slight to the news god. I'm a huge fan, but anytime it's just pictures of people's faces with little ass printing, I am not going to know who those guys are. I mean, if they had like, yeah, go ahead.
Here's the worst: when the team's Twitter accounts don't even post out pictures and they just give out the Twitter handles of everybody. It's like, yeah, I don't know who the King 77 is. Like that.
Yeah, you don't follow James Ennis on Twitter?
No.
Orlando does it a lot.
Yeah, they're
so it's like Dwayne Bacon,
teams.
James Ennis. Five guys that you certainly don't. Five guys that probably have less followers than me.
That is also when they're, and I have about a third of the followers you do or something like that. But yeah, if a team is tweeting out a starting player who has less followers than me on social media, like, yeah, I have no clue who that player is.
I need Goga, man, the whole shebang. And I don't really like the play right now. In the grand scheme of things, I think I'm overexposed to Goga, but he is also showed up in the optimal lineup 40% of the time. I have that twice as frequently as Nikola Jokic. So sometimes you just have to eat the chalk, even if it feels a little bit uncomfortable. Someone like Svi, I actually am mad at myself for having as much of, but I don't really have much of a choice. Going straight back to the TJ McConnell, well, Luka, as I mentioned, was my preferred pay-up option. I do not have much Russell Westbrook. Bradley Beal is my most exposed shooting guard, so I am Team Beal coming back. But again, 8,300 on FanDuel, to me, a much different play.
Yeah, 9,500 on DraftKings, a totally different story, and I do not have exposure to him at 9,500. But if he was 8,200 on DraftKings, I would have had exposure to him.
Anthony Davis, who is just the king of super chats in here, said, "Oh my God, I think I'm going to be sick." 20% Goga for him, 80% Svi.
Well, that is a lot of Svi, but I'm going to be heavier on Goga, and I think you should be as well, though a little late to update that. And then a really quick here, super chat from A. Dean, who asked Knight or Layman. That's pretty easily Knight for me.
Yes, absolutely.
And then one other one here, Mikey B asked Knight versus Nick Buckets. I have more exposure to Doug McDermott, and I assume that is a DraftKings question. But although maybe not, I don't know. If it's just who scores more points, it would have to be Doug McDermott, but there's also a pretty big price gap between them.
I played 30% McDermott. We shall see, but we are now officially locked, which is interesting. I know that we should be jumping off of right here, but the Indiana Pacers are in the lineups that have locked on FanDuel. I am curious to see how owned one Goga Batadze really is. Do you have a guess, or is your guess just whatever we projected?
I mean, my guess is going to be the ownership projection, which was somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but it was like somewhere in the neighborhood of 62% or something like that on DraftKings. I was looking
on FanDuel, where he is 35% owned.
Oh, so you have to be pretty happy with that. That is almost 10% less than what we were expecting. Let's see.
I am very happy with that. McDermott at 23, Karl Anthony Towns 8.5. I did get to 10, so at least I'm there for the ride, but that's all good. 21% to Russ. I'm very happily under that number.
In the $40 single entry, the first contest I clicked on DraftKings, where the ownership for the better plays ends up being a little higher. What would you guess that?
90, 98. Yeah.
Let me click on like the
way that you were saying, like I was going to say 80, but the way that you were saying it was like, oh, this is even higher than I was expecting.
It looks like Goga's about 60% on DraftKings. It looks like across most contests.
You know what I'm really excited to do? Watch the shorthanded Indiana Pacers take on the Washington Wizards right now.
Who isn't excited for that?
I'm trying to find a Beal lineup right now. Beal, 13.5% owned. Karis LeVert, who is $200 more expensive than Bradley Beal, is 28% owned. There is not a chance in hell that I would want the ownership the way that it's projected. I would want it the way that I have it: 34% Beal, 16% LeVert. I think that is the ultimate perfect flip-flop of ownership on this slate.
Yeah, I think I if I was on FanDuel, I'd be pretty thrilled if I had Bradley Beal with those kind of numbers.
Yeah, especially with LeVert coming in at 28%. Like these guys, taking the inverse of those two, in my opinion, is just the correct play in a large field GPP. But that's it, guys. We are done. We are at 7:00. We are locked. This is a fun one. Let's go watch some Indiana Pacers. Let's go watch Goga ball out. I hope by the time that I get downstairs that he doesn't already have 2 fouls, but we shall see. Greg, anything you want to plug? Anything you want to say before we get out of here?
No, just this is the last show of the day for basketball, but definitely PGA Live Before Lock later on. That's a big one with Masters coming up tomorrow.
I will be in attendance for that bad boy. I got to get my lineups ready because I got to let everybody know you got to fade Jordan Spieth. He's a terrible play in large field GPPs. Don't do it. He's over-owned. Don't do it. You don't want Jordan Spieth. It's Jon Rahm season. He's winning the Masters. That's all I've got. Good luck tonight, everybody. We'll talk to you again in the morning.